Week 38. Day 260, on courage. People who seem to act courageously usually have specific consequences in mind. They know the consequences both of acting and not acting. They've decided that the consequences of not acting are worse than the consequences of what we consider to be their courageous acts. Harry Brown. Here's a little trick to inspire courage to make a change. Prepare a list of the consequences of acting and not acting. List all the great things that will happen if you change and all the bad things that will happen, or keep on happening, if you decide not to act. Aim to make the list of the consequences of not acting so terrifying that the only valid choice would be to act. In essence, that's what courageous people often do in a split second. They see something that fills them with fear and do it anyway because ultimately not facing their fears is an even scarier proposition. For example, if you're afraid to change your job, imagine what will happen if you don't act. You'll have to continue working in a job you may even hate. Day by day, week by week, it will probably get even worse. The same faces, the same annoying tasks, the same frustrating boss. Isn't that prospect scarier than looking for a new job? Day 261, on giving up the last word. Consciously giving up the last word is a secret prayer because the you that wants the last word isn't really you at all. It's the dark spirit of one-upmanship, the dark spirit of combativeness. Guy Finley. When having a verbal fight, it's tempting to argue your case until you convince your opponent to share your stance. Unfortunately, it rarely, if ever, happens. He or she who has the last word doesn't succeed in anything except for making the other person feel worse. Consequently, here's another challenge for your self-control. Instead of always trying to one-up somebody else, give up having the last word. Don't try to prove that you're better, you aren't, or that your opinion is right. Even if it is, you won't convince anybody by arguing with them. Agree to disagree and change the topic to something more pleasant. Exercising self-restraint this way will not only improve your relationships with others, it will also help you improve your self-control by learning how to resist one of the strongest temptations, to continue to argue your case when you're convinced of your rightness. Day 262, on fragility caused by comfort. Diseases of civilization result from the attempt by humans to make life comfortable for ourselves against our own interest, since the comfortable is what fragilizes. Nassim Taleb. There's no doubt that modern comforts make our lives easier. However, while the benefits are clear, there are also disadvantages of living in so much comfort. We rarely get to experience the discomfort our ancestors had been dealing with on a daily basis, and consequently, we are less able to handle it when it manifests in our lives. That's why I've mentioned more than several times throughout the book how important it is to voluntarily put yourself in uncomfortable situations. One additional thought that is related to this topic is to think of experiencing discomfort as a vaccine. For example, I've fasted so many times on so many occasions that now whenever I find myself in a situation in which I'm forced to fast for some reason, I don't mind it. I've essentially immunized myself against the need to eat often, and this has made me a stronger person. The immunization you get from practicing discomfort quickly adds up, making you more resilient in all areas of life. Think of the ways in which you make yourself fragile through always choosing comfort over discomfort, and every now and then temporarily forego that comfort, in order to toughen up. Day 263, on thinking for yourself. You and you alone are the sole arbiter of the meaning in your life. The second you turn to someone and say, "What does life mean?" Or, "What should my life mean?" you have slipped into a mindset that courts inauthenticity and depression. The second you agree with someone simply because of her position or reputation, whether that someone is a guru, author, cleric, parent, politician, general, or elder, you fall from the path of personal meaning maker. Eric Maisel. One of the things I emphasize in every book is that I'm not a guru nor do I wish to be one. I don't want you to take my advice at face value, assuming that it's right simply because I share it in my book. Agreeing with somebody simply because of their position or reputation is dangerous, because you're essentially delegating your thinking process to this person. I make mistakes, you make mistakes, and even the world's most successful performers make mistakes. Moreover, what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person. For example, I often take the extreme approach, which usually works out fine for me, but might hurt another person who isn't used to pushing their limits in such a way. Granted, you won't know which approach is good for you until you test it for yourself, but it's important to think before you act and to question any advice, including the tips you find in this book. Finally, don't make the mistake of letting others decide the meaning of your life. You, and only you, can figure out how you want to live your life and what you want to get out of it. Following somebody else's recipe for an ideal life is a recipe for depression. Even if your dreams are considered weird by others, it doesn't make them incorrect. They're your dreams, and that's the only thing that counts for them to be valid. Day 264, on being honest with yourself about your feelings. Always be honest with yourself about how you are feeling, no matter what kinds of emotions might be building up inside of you. Pretending to ourselves that we are not feeling something does not make that emotion disappear. Nigel Cumberland. Pretending to yourself that you aren't feeling a temptation to cheat on your diet, waste time instead of working, or vent your anger on somebody else doesn't make those urges disappear. If anything, there's a risk that those emotions will build up inside of you and explode one day. If there's one characteristic thing about explosions, it's that they're uncontrollable. Instead of denying those emotions, observe them and seek a different outlet. Perhaps you could vent in a different way without hurting anyone. Maybe you need to schedule a cheat meal and indulge a little to avoid an unplanned cheat week. It's possible that you're overworking yourself and the temptation to take it easy is in reality your body's cry for help. Be honest with yourself about your feelings, especially those that stand in direct opposition to what you want to achieve. Remain vigilant of them and manage them instead of denying that they exist, or one day those feelings might take control of you. Day 265, on transformation taking place now. The present moment contains past and future. The secret of transformation is in the way we handle this very moment. Thich Nhat Hanh. The way you handle this very moment might mean nothing for you today, but in reality, each present moment is an opportunity to change your life. It all starts with one decision. Maybe you're now reading this book and wondering if you could learn how to play the guitar. It's only in this present moment that you can decide to stop reading and head to a music store, buy a guitar, and start learning. In the very same moment you might glance at a bag of chips on your lap and instead of finishing it off, close it and put it in the trash. When you're going about your day, each little choice subtly affects your future. Each repetition of a negative habit reinforces it, while each repetition of a positive habit makes it more likely you'll engage in it again in the future. Personal transformation doesn't happen in the future, it's happening now. How are you making sure that you're transforming in the right direction? Day 266, on temptations and your decision what to do about them. An eye, when open, has no option but to see. The decision whether to look at a particular man's wife, however, and how, belongs to the will. And the determination whether to trust what someone says, and then, if we trust them, whether we should be angered by it, that also belongs to the will. Epictetus. When shopping, you'll undoubtedly find yourself surrounded by shelves filled with unhealthy food. However, the decision whether it lands in your shopping cart depends on you. When taking a pause from learning for a difficult exam, you might receive a message from a friend asking you to hang out. The decision as to whether you hang out or finish your coffee and resume studying is yours to make. When browsing online, looking for information to help you grow your business, you might stumble upon a cat meme or a funny video. It's within your control as to whether you waste your time on low-quality entertainment or continue your search for information. It's tempting to shift the responsibility to the external factors, but does it benefit you in any way to claim that you cheated on your diet because you happened to go through the aisle with the potato chips? Is it a legitimate excuse to say that you didn't go for a jog because there was a comfortable sofa in your living room and it demanded your attention? Do whatever you can to avoid situations that might tempt you to do something that will jeopardize your long-term goals, but if you happen to come upon them, remember that it's still your decision and a test of your self-discipline as to whether they will affect you negatively. Week 39. Day 267, on self-monitoring. The more carefully and frequently you monitor yourself, the better you'll control yourself. Roy Baumeister. People who monitor their weight regularly have a higher chance of maintaining weight loss permanently. People monitoring their output at work have a higher chance of remaining productive in the long run. People who monitor the hours when they go to sleep and wake up are more likely to become permanent early risers. Self-monitoring is a crucial tool to help you keep track of your results and then, upon achieving your goal, maintaining them forever. I strongly suggest monitoring yourself at least weekly, and if possible, daily. For example, to keep myself in check, even though I'm fit, I weigh myself daily and regularly monitor my physique in the mirror. No, I don't obsess about my appearance like a narcissist or feel my heart rate going up when I step on the scales. The only purpose of doing these things is to ensure that if I somehow fail to notice a slip-up in my habits, my body will communicate it to me and help me address it before it gets worse. I follow the same approach in my business. I have a daily word count, but I also monitor my output compared to my output last year. That way, I always know when I'm getting lazy and when I need to concentrate on strengthening my work ethic. How often do you monitor yourself? Is it a part of your daily or weekly schedule? If not, it's time to make that happen. Day 268, on taking ownership for your ideas. Regardless of what we create, a toy box, a new source of electricity, a new mathematical theorem, much of what really matters to us is that it is our creation. As long as we create it, we tend to feel rather certain that it's more useful and important than similar ideas that other people come up with. Dan Ariely. When people create something themselves, say, a birthday card for a friend, they value it more than something created by somebody else. Similarly, people take ownership of their ideas and feel they're more valuable simply because they're their own ideas. You can use this phenomenon to improve your self-discipline. Instead of relying on my definition of self-discipline, come up with your own. Jot down what self-control means to you, when you feel it, how you feel it, and why is it important to you. I can write all day long how important self-discipline is, but if you do it yourself and apply it to your personal situation, you'll immediately understand it on a deeper level. In addition to reading the tips and tricks I share in this book, come up with your own ideas. You'll be more likely to act on your own ideas than on the ones that you learned from me or from any other person. I usually give 2 or 3 applications for every piece of advice, but it's rarely limited to just those 2 or 3 uses. Think about how you can adapt the lessons to your own life or even test the opposite way of doing things. There's rarely, if ever, only one correct method. Discovering the right answer for your unique situation can deliver better results than reading even 100 books about personal development. Day 269, on stretching. The benefits of stretching are enormous. Stretching can increase your strength by 10%. It is a lot. The man, Russian master of sports Alexander Faleev, explains that when you lift a weight your muscles contract. And after the workout the muscles remain contracted for some time. The following restoration of the muscle's length is what recovery is. Until the muscle has restored its length, it has not recovered. Hence he who does not stretch his muscles slows down the recuperation process and retards his gains. Besides, tension and relaxation are 2 sides of the same coin. If the muscle forgets how to lengthen, it will contract more poorly. And that is stagnation of strength. Pavel Tsatsouline. Here's your willpower exercise for the week: stretching. Stretching isn't only great for your physical health, since it's generally uncomfortable but provides long-term benefits, it's also great for your self-discipline. I strongly suggest always beginning a workout with dynamic stretches, short stretches, usually with some kind of a dynamic motion, and concluding each training with static stretching, holding a stretch for a longer period of time, usually at least 15 to 30 seconds. Static stretching is better for exercising your willpower because that's where you actually need to hold a stretch and keep at it, even though it's uncomfortable. 5 to 10 minutes of stretching a few times a week, focused particularly on the tightest areas, probably your hips, lower back and hamstrings, is a good target. If you don't know how to stretch, a quick search on YouTube will yield plenty of detailed video tutorials. Day 270, on self-reflection. Socrates compared living without thinking systematically to practicing an activity like pottery or shoemaking without following or even knowing of technical procedures. One would never imagine that a good pot or shoe would result from intuition alone. Why then assume that the more complex task of directing one's life could be undertaken without any sustained reflection on premises or goals? Alain de Botton. Set a timer for 15 minutes and do nothing else but sit or lie comfortably and think about your current problems or anything that's been on your mind recently. It's incredible how much insight you can get by hitting the pause button for mere 15 minutes and simply thinking, without doing anything else. When people are new to personal development, they tend to think more than act. They spend more time reading than actually implementing advice. Once you gain some experience and develop a habit of taking action, the opposite is often true. You take a lot of action, but rarely reflect on it. The exercise for today can remedy this situation by reminding you that you get the best results not only when you act, but when you act and reflect on your actions to ensure the highest effectiveness. Day 271 on how to use books. Books are like lobster shells. We surround ourselves with M, then we grow out of M and leave M behind, as evidence of our earlier stages of development. Dorothy L. Sayers. When you're new to the world of personal development, you read whatever you can grab your hands on. Every single classic, every book recommended to you by somebody you respect, every new best-selling release. At first, it's a fine strategy. You get to expose yourself to different authors, learn the fundamentals, and look at personal development from different perspectives. However, as time passes, you should leave some books behind and progress to more specific advice. For example, I used to read one general self-help book after another. Soon I found them all similar to each other. Each new title added little to my knowledge. I outgrew those books and needed to find a new teacher. I transitioned to reading books about a more specific topic than general personal development, how to change myself to become a successful entrepreneur, and how to actually start and run a profitable company, how to improve my communication skills, how to eat healthily, or how to develop focus. Then I started reading more biographies and autobiographies, where the lessons usually aren't as clearly laid out as in a regular how-to book, but which are unique and more insightful, related to a specific problem the person portrayed in the biography had dealt with. Recently I started expanding my horizons and seeking out books about specific problems I struggle with, for example, how to develop a better life philosophy, and reading books from other domains, so I could draw parallels from them and apply their principles to my own life. Think of different categories of books as your development stages. When a given type of a book no longer serves you, find a new teacher. Day 272 on extinguishing bad habits. You can never truly extinguish bad habits. Rather, to change a habit, you must keep the old cue and deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine. That's the rule. If you use the same cue and provide the same reward, you can shift the routine and change the habit. Almost any behavior can be transformed if the cue and reward stay the same. Charles Duhigg. Some time ago we talked about the habit loop, a cue, a signal to perform a habit, a routine, action, and a reward for engaging in the habit. This loop, when repeated over and over again, creates an automatic behavior. You can use this loop to create new habits, but you can also use it to replace bad habits with more empowering routines. For example, instead of always eating a chocolate bar during a lunch break, eat a banana. Your cue is a lunch break and your reward is eating something sweet. Two parts of the habit loop remain the same, but are now satisfied by a healthier alternative. Instead of always dealing with a stressful situation by emotional eating, head out for a quick run. Your cue is feeling stressed, and as a reward you get to reduce or eliminate the anxiety. Running can become an alternative, healthy way of satisfying your need for self-comfort. If you have any bad habits you want to get rid of, think about how to keep your cue and reward the same while replacing the negative routine with something empowering. You'll reduce the risk of reverting to the old habit because it will only be the action in itself that changes, not your cue or the reward. Day 273 on reprogramming your brain. Given our human impulse to pick up the habits and energy of others, you can use that knowledge to literally program your brain the way you want. Simply find the people who most represent what you would like to become and spend as much time with them as you can without trespassing, kidnapping, or stalking. Their good habits and good energy will rub off on you. Scott Adams. Research shows that resisting peer pressure causes emotional discomfort. Consequently, humans have a tendency to want to fit in, even when it means not thinking for themselves or doing things they would otherwise never do. While it's not a positive phenomenon among college kids who all want to emulate the popular guy or gal who's into partying hard, it can be a beneficial tool for an adult who consciously chooses the group whose features he or she would like to acquire. If there's any shortcut to building self-discipline, it's this: find a group of people who possess discipline and let the power of peer pressure change you. For example, if you want to build self-discipline to exercise regularly, join a fitness group or hang out in the park with ripped guys who are into calisthenics. If you want to become super productive and have enough self-discipline to wake up every single day at 5 in the morning to work on your startup, join a local networking group of entrepreneurs or work in a co-working space. If you want to stop spending so much money on unnecessary things, join a forum about frugality or follow bloggers in the personal finance niche. Look at it from other perspective, too. If the groups you currently belong to don't exhibit the traits you'd like to acquire, or worse, exhibit the complete opposite of those traits, ask yourself whether you want to continue to let them influence your life. Week 40. Day 274, on constant movement. Well, I always know what I want. And when you know what you want, you go toward it. Sometimes you go very fast, and sometimes only an inch a year. Perhaps you feel happier when you go fast. I don't know. I've forgotten the difference long ago, because it really doesn't matter, so long as you move. Ayn Rand. Constant movement is the key to a successful life, because humans are programmed to always be on the mission to improve their lives. The journey in itself can give life meaning, and obsessing about not being able to shorten it can only bring unnecessary frustration. In addition to that, certain goals require years, or sometimes even decades, to achieve, and there's little, if anything, you can do to turn them into reality sooner. Complaining only breeds negativity, which does nothing to help you attain your goals. You might think that it doesn't make sense to work on a goal if your progress is slow and you consequently feel tempted to give up. But what's the alternative? If you give up, you're guaranteed to not meet your objectives. What sense does it make to give up, frustrated by the slow progress, and then resort to wishing you could somehow magically turn your dream into reality? Day 275, on staying a champion. You will never be entirely comfortable. This is the truth behind the champion: he is always fighting something. To do otherwise is to settle. Julian Smith. I'm sorry to break it to you, but if you expect that one day all discomfort will be gone from your life and you'll be able to enjoy the fruits of your hard labor for the rest of your days, you're wrong. If you not only want to become a champion, but also stay a champion, by definition you'll always need to fight something: fight to reach a new goal, overcome hardships, expand your comfort zone, and continue improving yourself little by little. For example, at the time I'm writing this, it's been 2 years since I started rock climbing. I used to be terrified of heights and taking falls. While my fear of heights and taking falls has greatly diminished, I'm still not free, and will never be free from fear and discomfort when I'm climbing. If you want to improve your climbing, you need to climb harder and harder routes. They will still make you uncomfortable and scared. Even the best rock climbers in the world still feel fear and experience discomfort, just like skydivers, public speakers, successful businesspeople, athletes, and any other top performers. If you'd like to stay a champion, accept the fact that discomfort is here to stay. Embrace it as a teacher that will strengthen you and help you achieve ever greater feats, not as an annoying part of the process that you'd like to put behind as quickly as possible. Day 276, on the price of personal growth. Personal growth has its price, and she was paying it without complaint. Paulo Coelho. As we've discussed it in yesterday's entry, staying a champion means that you'll always need to put yourself in new, uncomfortable situations. It's the price you have to pay for excellence. Personal growth in general has its price, too. From my personal experience, here are several things you should expect on your journey toward improving your life. 1. People being confused about your actions. Unless you're surrounding yourself solely with top performers, your immediate social circle will probably be puzzled why you're subjecting yourself to discomfort, prioritizing work over enjoying yourself, or rejecting pleasures today for the sake of tomorrow. The sooner you learn to ignore those voices, the better off you'll be. 2. Outgrowing certain people in your life. It's painful, but you'll probably outgrow some friends or loved ones. You'll find it harder to connect with them and they'll find it harder to connect with you. This doesn't necessarily have to happen in every situation and with everyone, but prepare yourself for the reality that some of your relationships will probably weaken or stop being as fulfilling as they used to be. 3. An incessant desire to improve everything. Once you start making positive changes in your life and experience in your own skin how powerful new habits and attitudes can be, you'll feel the desire to improve everything. This can be a source of frustration when you realize that certain people don't want to change or that certain social mores actually value mediocrity over excellence. 4. Self-guilt that you have it better than other people. As strange as it sounds, if you successfully introduce some important changes in your life, develop a healthy physique, form positive nutritional habits, set aside some savings and find meaningful work you enjoy or at least one that satisfies you financially, you might start feeling guilty that others have it worse. Considering that most people are either obese, unhealthy, broke, or unhappy at work, chances are that you will indeed live a better life than they are living. However, in the end you gain the right to enjoy the life you have now through your own efforts. Don't feel guilty because you made better choices. Other people could have done the same. 5. A difficulty to enjoy what you have. The more you achieve in your life, the more you'll want to achieve. When you notice that something is lacking in your life, you'll want to change it. This carries the risk that you'll never be able to enjoy what you have or unrealistically expect that everything and everyone needs to be perfect. Sooner or later, ideally sooner, you'll need to learn how to be grateful for what you have and be content with it. Day 277, on making things convenient. Nutritionally speaking, frozen veggies are similar to, and sometimes better than, fresh ones. This makes sense, considering that these veggies are usually flash frozen, which suspends/pauses their aging and nutrient losses immediately after being harvested. Frozen veggies are often picked in the peak of their season, too. Ronald B. Pegg. Here's the ultimate hack when it comes to eating more vegetables: eat ones that have been frozen. At least 50 to 60% of vegetables I eat have been frozen, the rest are canned and fresh. Research shows that nutrition-wise, frozen vegetables aren't worse and might be even better than fresh vegetables. One of the biggest issues when it comes to improving your eating habits is a lack of time or being too lazy to prepare fresh vegetables. You can get rid of this excuse by buying a frozen vegetable mix. Steam it, sprinkle it with some good herbs and spices, and voila! You're getting your veggies for the day with no need to go through the entire ordeal of peeling, washing, and cooking fresh vegetables, for which you might not have enough willpower. Please note that this entry isn't merely about frozen vegetables, it's about making sure that your new positive habits are as convenient to stick to as possible. The more convenient you make it to stick to a healthy diet, the more likely you'll be to stick to it. Even if one day scientists discover that frozen or canned vegetables aren't as healthy as the fresh ones, it's still better to eat them than not eat vegetables at all because it's too inconvenient for you to eat them fresh. The same applies to other goals. Yes, it would be ideal if you found a fun outdoor activity, but if you really can't afford to do so, buying some basic equipment and exercising at home, to make it more convenient, is still better than not exercising at all. When you're choosing between failing to stick to a positive habit because it's inconvenient or making it more convenient but perhaps a little bit less effective, choose the latter. Day 278, on the rent axiom. The rent axiom says that success is never owned. Success is only rented and the rent is due every day. Rory Vaden. The rent axiom is a powerful way to look at success. Instead of thinking of success as something that is given to you, thus risking that you'll take it for granted and become complacent, you assume that you only rent it, and to keep it in your life, you need to pay the rent each and every day. Another consequence of adopting this perspective is that you'll stop looking for shortcuts or temporary solutions. The rent is due every day, so it's not like you can take one magic pill and forever solve all of your problems. It's an empowering outlook on life that will help you not only reach success, but also, which is even more important, to maintain it. Thousands of people all over the world have successfully lost weight, started exercising more, built successful businesses, improved their relationships, learned new skills, wrote books, and achieved other goals. However, thousands of them also lost their success when they assumed it was there forever. Spouses stopped putting in the effort. Businessmen let their competition crush them. Dieters reverted to their old habits and regained weight. If you don't want this to happen to you, remember to pay your rent every day and always make sure that your current actions confirm that you deserve the success you've achieved. Day 279 on learning with age. It's very simple. As you grow, you learn more. If you stayed at 22, you'd always be as ignorant as you were at 22. Aging is not just decay, you know. Growth. It's more than the negative that you're going to die, it's also the positive that you understand you're going to die, and that you live a better life because of it. Mitch Albom. As time passes, one might feel tempted to believe that their best years are behind them. Now decay commences, and things can only get worse. How about looking at it from a different point of view and embracing aging as the learning process? I like to say that if in 5 years I'm the same person that I am today, then I'll have failed. Ideally, in 5 years I should feel slightly uncomfortable about the type of a person I was in the past. Aging is not merely about your body's cells dividing and multiplying, it's also about your knowledge, which, if you make an effort to do so, constantly expands, gives you new perspectives and helps you live an ever better life. You can look at aging in both ways, a process of deterioration or a process of improvement. Which attitude will bring more happiness and success in your life? Day 280, on seeing your troubles from the proper perspective. I try to see my troubles in their proper perspective. I say to myself, 2 months from now I shall not be worrying about this bad break, so why worry about it now? Why not assume now the same attitude that I will have 2 months from now? William L. Phelps. At the moment I'm writing this, I'm questioning my ability to persevere for another 2 weeks before I finish this book. I've been working on it for a long time, and it's been my most difficult project so far. The thought that helps me see my current troubles from the proper perspective is imagining myself 2 months from now, when the work is already done and the book is published. In the grand scheme of things, what does 2 additional weeks of work mean? I'm almost done, so now I only need to push myself for a little while longer and the situation will resolve itself. In the past, a friend helped me handle my financial troubles in a similar way. I was worried about the money I owed to the bank, but in the grand scheme of things it mattered little. My friend made me aware that my new business had been making money, it was quickly growing, and it would only be a matter of several months and I'd be debt-free. If you're currently struggling or worrying about something, try to look at your troubles from the perspective of you in the future. If your situation will end in several days or weeks, then is it really such a big problem? Even if it's going to take at least several months, it's still a temporary condition and worrying about it excessively is counterproductive. Week 41. Day 281, on the hardships writing your life story. You can recall everything you have worked hard and patiently for in your life, but how many things that you have attained with little or no effort can you remember? Thomas Sterner. When you're struggling with your goal and feel tempted to give up, remind yourself that ultimately, it's the hardships that write your life story and make it so exciting and memorable. As Thomas Sterner points out, we don't remember things that we achieved easily, and often, they don't even make us particularly happy or we don't consider them significant. Working hard and patiently to achieve an important but difficult goal isn't just an unpleasant thing that you need to do to get to your destination, it's life itself, a state a human being needs to feel fulfilled and inspired. A life without challenges is neither happy nor does it lead to you realizing your full potential. See your current hardships for what they are, a powerful opportunity to embrace your human nature, grow as a person, and an awesome inspirational story you'll be able to share with others in the future. Day 282, on analysis paralysis. The 10,000 questions are one question. If you cut through the one question, then the 10,000 questions disappear. Xinshin Ming. Analysis paralysis happens when you overthink a situation to such an extent that you never take a decision. For example, a person who wishes to lose weight will never commence a diet because they'll forever keep searching for the right diet or the ultimate answer to the question of which foods are healthy and which are not. Hint, even scientists don't know the correct answer. As a result, weeks and months pass by, and all you have is more and more unresolved questions and zero real-world results. While it often pays to think deeply about your goal and how you want to approach it, if you have a tendency to overanalyze and overcomplicate things, give yourself just one day to figure out the answer to one key question, and instead of aiming for the perfect answer, aim for an answer that's good enough. For example, if you want to start a diet and are unsure which one to follow, research the most common and most successful diets. Limit your choices to the few best options and then choose the one that feels like the best fit. Don't worry about getting it perfect. In the state of analysis paralysis, you won't get any results, so even mediocre results are still an improvement. Think of it as driving a car in foggy weather. Even though you can't see everything around you, you can still drive. It's the same with goals. Even with limited knowledge, you can still work on your objectives. Day 283, on being hungry. Stay hungry. Be hungry for success, hungry to make your mark, hungry to be seen and to be heard and to have an effect. And as you move up and become successful, make sure also to be hungry for helping others. Don't rest on your laurels. Arnold Schwarzenegger. One of the biggest dangers of success is that when people achieve it, they frequently lose the hunger that has led them to demonstrate the incredible amounts of willpower and determination it took to make their dreams come true. As a result, they run a huge risk of losing the success they've worked so hard to achieve. If you don't want to be like those people, once you're done celebrating your success, find another source of hunger that will make you pursue new challenges and continue to grow. Set bigger goals, or find a deeper meaning behind your actions. Discover a new itch to scratch, to keep yourself always learning more. Note that always searching for a new source of hunger doesn't mean that you can't ever be content with what you have. It's not about constantly chasing the carrot, dissatisfied with what you have. It's about making your life ever so much larger, while being appreciative and protective of what you have. For example, I'm extremely grateful for my successes in the self-publishing world and for people like you reading my books, and precisely because of that, I still push myself. I know that it's only through constant effort and through producing new works that I can reach even more people and achieve new goals. Writing new books protects my success and lets me grow as a writer, constantly taking things to the next level. Should my hunger for writing disappear one day, I'll find a new reason to be hungry in a different area. Don't let comfort persuade you that challenges aren't important in life. When there's nothing difficult that you're striving to achieve, you will eventually lose your hard-earned achievements, habits, and traits, and along with it, the comfort that you're now enjoying. Day 284, on habits as handcuffs. Don't let your habits become handcuffs. Elizabeth Berg. Few, if any, self-help authors would challenge the opinion that habits are of key importance to a person wishing to improve their life. Most would agree that good habits unlock success, while negative habits are destroying you. Yet, sometimes even positive habits can act like handcuffs that limit your life and choices to a pre-selected set of routines that you've decided are most optimal for you. Is waking up early generally a positive habit? It is. It can become like handcuffs, though, if you assume that now you need to wake up early every single day, even if there's a special occasion to celebrate the evening before, such as your spouse's birthday. Is eating healthy a positive habit? Of course it is. However, it can act as shackles if you never let yourself lower your guard for a while and enjoy, preferably in great company, whatever food strikes your fancy. Is being highly productive and always working on something new a good habit to have? It is, but if you never relax or get a little lazy, you'll miss out on some valuable experiences in life and eventually burn out. Whenever forming new habits, establish rules as to when you'll allow yourself to temporarily forego them. Self-discipline and positive habits are important, but life isn't about living like a robot that always follows the same routines, no matter what. Day 285, on small efforts at self-control. Committing to any small, consistent act of self-control, improving your posture, squeezing a hand grip every day to exhaustion, cutting back on sweets, and keeping track of your spending can increase overall willpower. Kelly McGonigal. Don't discount the power of small efforts. They count, too. Little challenges that you can do throughout the day, with a small time investment, can help you improve your overall self-discipline. In fact, some of those small things, such as reminding yourself to have a good posture or avoid cursing, when done repeatedly, can deliver immense personal changes because they force you to be more mindful of your everyday actions. By pausing yourself intermittently throughout the day to control your small behaviors, you develop more mindfulness, and consequently, more self-control. Here are some little exercises you can consider adding to your everyday routine to improve your self-discipline, even when you're strapped for time. Keep your back straight when working. Every hour, stand up and do 5 bodyweight squats. Pause for 5 seconds before you start cursing. Keep a notebook with you and, each day, write down 3 new ideas to improve yourself. Every day put $1 into a savings jar if you don't have money to spare. This means resisting a temptation to buy something you consume daily, like coffee or a bagel. Day 286, on avoiding problems. Avoid what causes the opposite of what you want to achieve. Peter Bevelin. If you want to be safe, it's best not to attend dangerous venues. For example, one of the most common places where bad things happen are nightclubs and their immediate vicinity. If you don't go to nightclubs, your risk of getting into a brawl or being attacked by a drunk person is greatly decreased. It's the same with self-control. Instead of exerting self-discipline, it's better to avoid problems that can cause the opposite of what you want to achieve. If you want to be a frugal person, don't go to shopping centers if you don't have to, and don't hang out with people who love shopping. If you want to become more productive, sell your TV set, video console, and any other thing a lazy person considers a must-have. If you want to stop drinking alcohol, stop going to parties where alcohol is the primary source of entertainment, and don't spend time with people who live for the weekends. Think about your goal, figure out what its opposite is, and then ask yourself which actions, people, and places can lead you to that opposite result and avoid them. Day 287, on reducing procrastination that comes from overwhelm. The bigger and more overwhelming the project seems to you, the greater your tendency to procrastinate. Neil Fiore. A common reason why people procrastinate about something that they consider extremely important to them is exactly that, they consider it so crucial that it overwhelms them and paralyzes their actions. When you think of something as your only big chance in life, you'll understandably try to tread as carefully as possible. This, however, can quickly convert into procrastination when your fear of ruining the opportunity will prevent you from taking action. If you currently find yourself in such a situation, ask yourself what is the end result of putting off this big, once-in-a-lifetime chance in life. Isn't procrastinating about it going to lead to the exact same thing you're afraid of, losing the opportunity? Whenever setting new resolutions, manage your attitude about them so that you aren't overwhelmed by them. Think of it as having an opportunity to meet a famous person. You can hold them in high regard, but it doesn't mean that you have to act like a crazy fan around them. In fact, that's what will put them off, while a person who treats them as another human being will be a welcome difference. It's the same with your goals. Yes, they might be so important that they will change your life. However, this will only happen if you keep a cool head about them. Otherwise, you can let them overwhelm you to such an extent that you'll altogether fail to act. Week 42. Day 288, on routines and relationships. People are offended when you repeatedly turn down their invitations. But, at that point, I felt that the indispensable relationship I should build in my life was not with a specific person but with an unspecified number of readers. My readers would welcome whatever lifestyle I chose, as long as I made sure that each new work was an improvement over the last. And shouldn't that be my duty and my top priority as a novelist? Haruki Murakami. Haruki Murakami's dedication to his readers is impressive, but you might wonder if it means that if you want to achieve your goals by adopting consistent routines, you'll lose friends and live the life of a social recluse. The answer is, partly yes, and partly no. You often can't choose when you're the most effective. For me, it's mornings, between 5 and 9 a.m. This means that each day I need to go to sleep around 9 or 10 p.m. at the latest, in order to have a good night's sleep and ensure maximum productivity the next morning. Obviously, this affects my life. I rarely hang out with my friends in the evening. However, and here's where we get to the core of the issue, sometimes you need to make a choice between a routine and a relationship. A person whose primary role is that of a parent will understandably adapt their routine to that of their child. An entrepreneur will choose to not spend time with some of his or her friends, if that means that his or her business can grow more quickly. A person who wants to banish negative emotions from their life will ensure that their day is constructed in a way that is most conducive to positive feelings. Define your most important priorities and roles in life and adjust your life accordingly. Don't try to please everybody, because it simply can't happen. Day 289, on accounting for taxes. Everything you do has a tax attached to it. For example, the tax on traveling is all the waiting around. Disagreements and occasional frustration are taxes placed on even the happiest of relationships. Theft is a tax on abundance and having things that other people want. Stress and problems are tariffs that come attached to success. Simply pay the taxes in life and enjoy the fruits of what you get to keep. Ryan Holiday. It's exciting to set new goals and imagine how your life will change when you achieve them. However, people often forget that everything in life has a tax attached to it. When they wake up to the reality that their goals aren't all roses and require some sacrifices on their part or generate problems, their excitement fades away and their odds of success decrease. As Ryan Holiday notes, there are taxes on traveling, relationships, and financial success, but they aren't limited just to those areas. If you want to become healthier, one of the taxes is that you'll have a harder time when you eat in a social setting. If you want to get more fit, you'll most likely have to forego some other activities in order to make time for physical activities. If you want to become a best-selling author or become virtually any kind of an expert, you'll undoubtedly attract critics. Thinking about the dark side before you even start working on your goals doesn't sound like a good way to motivate yourself, but it's necessary to acknowledge it and be prepared for the fact that any change in life, including a positive one, will bring some new problems with it, and it's a price you have to pay to enjoy it. Day 290, on letting go of the old person. You must be willing to let go of the old person in order to become the new person. You must be willing to stop doing certain things in order to start doing the things that are consistent with the new you. Brian Tracy. People want to get rid of their flaws and improve themselves, but at the same time, they aren't willing to let go of their unfavorable behaviors and habits. They're slaves to their weaknesses, often equating them with who they are. An overweight person will never change unless they stop thinking of themselves as an overweight person. If being obese is something that you use as your personal definition and, what's even worse, you feel fine referring to yourself in such a way, how do you expect to become a new person? I was overweight as a teenager and in my early 20s. One day I realized that, in some twisted way, I enjoyed it. Upon discovering this fact and realizing that my future wouldn't be very bright if I were to stay faithful to this definition of myself, I decided to let go of this identity and lose weight. Today, I'm proud to define myself as a slim, fit person. A person who defines themselves as a video gamer and wears it as a badge of honor will be unlikely to adopt new, more productive behaviors until they become willing to let go of their old identity of a gamer. True, there's nothing inherently wrong in being a gamer. However, if it stands in the way of accomplishing your goals, rethink whether it's an identity that serves you or if perhaps it's time to give it up so you can start doing other things that are more consistent with a new you. Who's the old you and who's the new you? How often do you engage in the behaviors of the old you and how often do you manifest the traits of the new you? Shift the balance toward the new you and one by one, eradicate the undesirable old behaviors. Day 291, on the how instead of the outcome. Many people don't understand that how you climb a mountain is more important than reaching the top. The goal of climbing big, dangerous mountains should be to attain some sort of spiritual and personal growth, but this won't happen if you compromise away the entire process. Yvon Chouinard. All goals require you to go through a process to attain them. If you compromise away the process by cutting corners, you're missing out on what goal achievement is really about, personal growth, through making the journey. When all is said and done, you aren't going to talk for hours about how you stood on top of the mountain, but about the ordeal you had to go through to reach the top. You won't grow because you got to the peak. It's everything that happens prior to reaching it that results in growth, not the mere act of putting your foot one more step forward and achieving the summit. Whether you take that last step or not, it won't erase all that you've had to go through to get that far. In the quote, Yvon Chouinard refers to the wealthy individuals with no climbing experience and skills or any desire to develop them who pay huge sums of money to reach the top of Mount Everest, with the help of the Sherpas who carry the equipment needed to make the ascent as easy as possible. Those rich men and women aren't after the personal growth, they're after the bragging rights of getting to the top of the tallest mountain in the world at all costs. They reached the top, but they deprived themselves of the lessons the difficult process would offer them. When chasing after your goals, don't be like those wannabe climbers. By all means, do whatever you can to achieve your dreams as quickly as possible, but don't cut corners, compromise your moral principles, cheat, or hurt anyone, just so you can brag that you accomplished your objective. Day 292, on mental resilience. Do not grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form. Jalaluddin Rumi. The essence of mental resilience is the belief that anything bad that happens to you will ultimately turn out to be good for you. However, I wouldn't go so far as to say don't grieve after losing a loved one, so please note that today's entry is about being mentally resilient when it comes to less impactful negative events happening in your life. When faced with heartbreaking losses such as a business going bankrupt, a lost job opportunity, a breakup, or even your new diet going south, it's hard to see it as a possible blessing in disguise. After all, you've just lost something: a business, a relationship, a job, or hope for improvement. As an immediate reaction, it might be challenging to not feel bad about the situation. However, once you process that it has happened and accept that, one of the best ways to move on is to remind yourself that what you've just lost will come around again in a different form. Maybe a breakup was necessary so that you can start over again and find a different, better partner. Maybe your business had to go bankrupt so you could free up your resources to focus on a better idea. Your diet went south, and maybe it happened because now you'll discover new nutritional habits that will be easier to maintain than your previous restrictive diet. Each time something bad happens, try to find a lesson in it and the new opportunities it presents. I suggest that you start small, with less significant negative events, as it will take time and experience to learn to handle bigger difficulties with calm and dignity. Day 293, on cutting your losses. Cut your losses short and let your winners run. A Wall Street saying. I once invested several $1,000s in an extensive coaching course. I thought that since I was already an author, it wouldn't be that different to become a coach, too. I spent over a month learning from that course, and ultimately gave up with little to show for it. After a month of studying, I didn't feel I knew that much more about coaching to be able to coach, and it didn't matter, because I knew that I wouldn't do it anyway. My idea to become a coach was a mistake. I realized that my strengths lie in writing books, and not in giving personalized advice. Continuing my education would have been continuing to invest my time and energy into something that was destined to fail anyway. I cut my losses short and refocused on writing. Due to loss aversion, people have a tendency to avoid losses over acquiring equivalent gains. This means that you'd rather keep investing your time and energy into a failed project than cut it short and redirect your attention to something that can produce better results. It's a dangerous trap for persistent people, because you might spend months, if not years, doing something that will ultimately lead you nowhere. If you're keeping at it only because of what you've already invested, ask yourself if it's the best use of your time. If it isn't, and there are better things you can do, accept the losses as a learning experience and move on. Day 294, on the all-or-nothing mentality. Part of abandoning the all-or-nothing mentality is allowing yourself room for setbacks. We are bound to have lapses on the road to health and wellness, but it is critical that we learn how to handle small failures positively so that we can minimize their long-term destructive effects. One setback is one setback. It is not the end of the world, nor is it the end of your journey toward a better you. Jillian Michaels. People often don't act on their goals because they don't see how they can make it big right away. For them, it's all or nothing. It's either a sexy, firm, and beautiful body or nothing. It's either a glamorous startup, backed by the biggest names from the Silicon Valley, or nothing. It's either being a perfect dancer or not learning how to dance at all. It's easy to see that there's only one outcome of this mentality: you do nothing, because no matter what you do, you won't get your perfect results right away. Even if you do start, one setback will discourage you from further efforts. After all, it's all or nothing, and since you just suffered a failure, it's time to give up, as you won't be perfect anymore. Avoid developing such a mindset in yourself by acknowledging that everybody has to first be bad at something in order to become good at it. No world-class performers started out with incredible skills. They all fumbled and failed on their journey toward success. If you don't believe me, read some autobiographies. If you managed to get past the all-or-nothing thinking and started working on your goals, but small slip-ups discourage you from further efforts, tell yourself that you only have to adhere to your resolutions in 90% of your efforts. The remaining 10% is your margin for mistakes. That way, one slip-up won't destroy your entire progress. After all, you've already accounted for it, so it's not ruining your forecast result. Week 43. Day 295, on wandering aimlessly. We are engineered as goal-seeking mechanisms. We are built that way. When we have no personal goal which we are interested in and which means something to us, we are apt to go around in circles, feel lost and find life itself aimless and purposeless. We are built to conquer environment, solve problems, achieve goals, and we find no real satisfaction or happiness in life without obstacles to conquer and goals to achieve. People who say that life is not worthwhile are really saying that they themselves have no personal goals which are worthwhile. Maxwell Maltz. If you've been wandering aimlessly, asking yourself what's the point of life and feeling like you have no purpose, it's possibly because you don't have any important long-term goals to achieve. Whenever I found myself in such a situation, it was always during a transitory period between finishing work on one important goal and looking for a new challenge. When you reach an important long-term goal, by all means celebrate it, but don't give yourself more than a couple of weeks to set a new challenge. Failing to identify a new exciting target and living your life without any big goals eventually leads to depression. I'm talking from my personal experience. If I don't have a guiding star in the form of a significant long-term goal, I lose motivation for everything, including my passions. For this reason, I always have secondary goals. Whenever I accomplish my primary goal and don't immediately come up with a new primary goal, I promote one of the secondary goals to become my new objective. I strongly suggest creating a waiting list of goals to achieve, so that when you find yourself without a goal, you'll be able to quickly refocus on a new challenge. Day 296, on your habitual thoughts. Such as are thy habitual thoughts, such also will be the character of thy mind, for the soul is dyed by the thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. The thoughts you entertain most often will have the biggest impact on who you are as a person. If you think about your business every day, you'll define yourself as an entrepreneur. If you have negative thoughts every day, your attitude will be negative. If every day you blame everything and everyone but you for your problems in life, you'll self-identify as a victim. For this reason, it's a good exercise to periodically take stock of your most habitual thoughts and their potential impact on who you are as a person. For example, I recently discovered that I had been engaging in too many negative thoughts. While those negative thoughts usually represent a small percentage of the thoughts I have, lately they had multiplied. Using Marcus Aurelius's words, I don't want to let them dye my soul black, so I've made a decision to focus on cultivating more positive thoughts and weeding out the negative ones. Think of the most common thoughts you've been engaging in recently and ask yourself if they represent the kind of a person you want to be. If not, it's time to exert some self-discipline and regain control of your mind. Day 297, on the best time to work. I do my best thinking at night when everyone else is sleeping. No interruptions. No noise. I like the feeling of being awake when no one else is. Jennifer Niven. The best time to work, and by work, I mean work on your highest priorities, not necessarily your day job, with hours that you can't control, is a highly individual matter, but for most people there are only two choices for maximum productivity: early morning, when people aren't awake yet, or late at night, when everyone is already asleep. The common denominator is the lack of interruptions that can ruin your concentration in a matter of seconds. Early mornings have the advantage of being easier to combine them with a normal everyday schedule. Even if you wake up at 5 in the morning, you can still lead a regular life, go to work or attend other obligations during the day with plenty of energy, spend time with family and friends during the afternoon, and every now and then stay up late and enjoy the evenings. Unlike the way most self-help slogans go, staying up late doesn't mean that you'll never reach success, but in general it's more difficult to maintain this schedule when compared to waking up early. For one, most humans don't handle night shifts well because we're programmed to sleep when it's dark and be active when there's light. Second, having to sleep during the day means missing out on many social events. Moreover, a typical employee can't afford to stay up late, they need to be at work at 9. In the long run, it's impossible to survive 8 hours of work after only a couple of hours of sleep. For this reason, working at night is most suitable to people with flexible schedules. I used to follow such a routine. I worked until 3 to 4 a.m. and woke up around 1 to 2 p.m. In the end, I switched my routine and took the opposite approach. While I was generally productive while working at night, my mental health and energy levels visibly deteriorated due to a deficiency of sunlight and a messed up circadian clock. Still, it's good to test both approaches and see which one is most suitable for you. The key is to find a period of time when you feel most productive and able to concentrate. Day 298. 298 on the suffocating mantras. The yogic sages say that all the pain of a human life is caused by words, as is all the joy. We create words to define our experience, and those words bring attendant emotions that jerk us around like dogs on a leash. We get seduced by our own mantras. I'm a failure. I'm lonely. I'm a failure. I'm lonely, and we become monuments to them. To stop talking for a while, then, is to attempt to strip away the power of words, to stop choking ourselves with words, to liberate ourselves from our suffocating mantras. Elizabeth Gilbert. Self-talk can build you up or it can drag you down. If each day you repeat in your head the mantra that you're a failure or you're lonely, guess what you're going to get? Success and companionship? Think again. You exhibit actions congruent with your inner self-talk. If you consider yourself a failure and a lonely person, that's what you're going to get, more failure and loneliness. Be aware of the suffocating mantras in your life. Liberate yourself from suffering by refusing the negative self-talk. Each time you tell yourself something negative, seek the proof of the opposite. When you say to yourself, I'm a failure, think of just one situation in which you succeeded. How can you be a failure if you experience successes? When you say, I'm weak-willed, think of just one instance in which you managed to overcome a temptation. You might not have the level of self-discipline you desire, but it doesn't mean that you're automatically too weak-willed to change. Strip away the power of negative mantras by citing, in your head, the evidence against them. Repeat this evidence as a sort of a counter-mantra so that you can, instance by instance, weaken the grip of the negative mantra and eventually free yourself of it. Day 299 on generalizations. I often wonder why the whole world is so prone to generalize. Generalizations are seldom if ever true and are usually utterly inaccurate. Agatha Christie. Generalizations demonstrate lazy thinking, and lazy thinking is one trait that you most certainly don't want to have if you want to improve your self-discipline. Resist the temptation to categorize everyone and everything. Acknowledge that, besides black and white, there are all kinds of shades of gray. One of the most dangerous types of generalizations is assuming that a frequently repeated opinion is a fact. Examples include: 1. Every salesman is a liar wanting to make as much money as they can on every sale. If that's the generalization you believe, how effective will you be at selling your own services or yourself to a potential employer? 2. All men/women are horrible people. Good luck developing happy relationships with people if you categorize every member of the opposite sex as a horrible person. 3. All successful people got lucky. If that's what you believe, do you think it's possible you'll ever achieve success? 4. The only way to become properly educated is to go to college, and, what usually follows that generalization, your education ends the moment you graduate. Without lifelong learning, achieving and maintaining success will be a tricky proposition. 5. You need to be white/wake up early/start a business/be rich/live in the United States/be male/fill in the blank to become successful. Be cautious not to equate success with a single trait or habit. Warren Buffett drinks 5 cans of Coke every day. Does it mean that drinking Coke leads to success and longevity? Catch yourself whenever you proclaim generalizations that masquerade as facts. Unless you can state beyond a reasonable doubt that everything or everyone is the way you describe it, and it takes only one thing or person to prove otherwise, you're only voicing an opinion. Day 300, on walking. All truly great thoughts are conceived while walking. Friedrich Nietzsche. Walking is not only a fantastic exercise that almost everybody can perform, but also a powerful way to awaken your creativity and boost your problem-solving skills. I strongly suggest adding the habit of walking regularly, even if it's just 15 minutes, to your weekly schedule. For even better results, pick a route leading you through natural surroundings, or at least away from the hustle and bustle of city living. I like to take walks with a specific intention in my mind. For example, I think of a problem I've been struggling with recently and dedicate my entire walk to brainstorming potential solutions. I sometimes listen to important podcasts when walking because I know that if it weren't for the walk, I wouldn't listen to them with as much focus as they deserve. Don't underestimate the power of this simple exercise to change your life. Walking gives you an opportunity to move your body, recharge, reflect, and potentially resolve difficult problems that you wouldn't otherwise be able to handle in your distracting, day-to-day life. Day 301, on the power of rituals. A growing body of research suggests that as little as 5% of our behaviors are consciously self-directed. We are creatures of habit, and as much as 95% of what we do occurs automatically or in reaction to a demand or an anxiety. Jim Loehr. If the vast majority of what we do is an automatic behavior, then what we need to focus on in the first place is making sure that our rituals are empowering. But first, we need to identify and assess our automatic behaviors. Starting from when you wake up, make a list of all of the automatic behaviors you engage in throughout the day. Do you immediately go to prepare coffee? When commuting to work, do you always swear at other drivers? When you arrive at work, do you automatically start gossiping with your colleagues? When shopping, do you automatically buy things you don't necessarily need if you see that they're discounted by 50%? When you're tired but there's still one more chore to attend to, do you routinely watch TV first and then take care of the chore, or forget about it entirely, or do you do it immediately, instead of giving in to the temptation to procrastinate? This simple exercise will help you take stock of your rituals and decide which ones to keep and which ones to discard. Since automatic behaviors often take place without us being entirely aware of them, making such a list may help you discover your blind spots. In addition to performing this exercise, pick one day during which you'll try to catch yourself whenever you're automatically engaging in disadvantageous behaviors. It's only with heightened self-awareness that you can identify some of the little everyday habits that negatively affect your willpower. Week 44. Day 302, on listening to your gut. You might find the idea of listening to your gut feelings odd or even ridiculous. Some people I coach, normally left-brain individuals who use logic and facts all day like engineers or accountants, are not used to following their intuition and feelings. Instead of asking themselves, "What do I feel?" they are more comfortable asking, "What do the facts tell me?" Nigel Cumberland. Using logic and facts is essential in accomplishing your goals, but sometimes it's important to listen to your gut, instead of what you can determine through using a rational thinking process. For example, I was once running a company in a profitable industry, with a good and proven business model. There were many possibilities for growth, clients enjoyed the service, and it was probable that, with enough persistence, I would get venture capital funding and expert coaching. However, in my gut I felt that the business wasn't for me. It clashed with my personality, and no amount of rational thinking, facts, and logic would have persuaded me otherwise. In the end, I sold the company and it proved to be the right decision, a decision that was based primarily on my intuition and feelings, not logic. Don't ignore the usefulness of your gut feelings. It's fine to be self-disciplined and remain persistent no matter what, but if deep down you no longer care about your goal or it otherwise makes you feel uneasy, let your intuition make its case. It's highly probable that it's right. Day 303, on Buddha's counsel. The Buddha also counseled the monks and nuns to avoid wasting any precious time by engaging in idle conversation, oversleeping, pursuing fame and recognition, chasing after desires, spending time with people of poor character, and being satisfied with only a shallow understanding of the teaching. Thich Nhat Hanh. Buddha's advice offers several interesting challenges you can dedicate yourself to in order to work on your self-discipline. The first one is not engaging in idle conversation. Small talk might be useful to initiate a conversation, but the sooner you get to the business at hand, the more effective your communication will be. By idle conversation, we can also include gossip, criticizing others, or complaining, all of which are not practices in which a disciplined person should engage. The second suggestion is simple: avoid oversleeping. As long as you don't need more sleep to recover from a difficult workout, illness, or any other similar situation, sleeping too much doesn't deliver any benefits and, according to scientific research, might even hurt. In one study, sleeping too much was associated with psychiatric diseases and higher body mass index. The third suggestion advises against the pursuit of fame and recognition. Too often, people care too much about their status in other people's eyes and neglect other, more important aspects of their lives, which may only be visible to themselves. Focus on becoming better, but not necessarily with the expectation that somebody will reward you for it. The fourth recommendation is not to chase after desires. There's not much to add here. This entire book is about learning how to control them and focus on something more important than your temporary urges. The fifth piece of advice pertains to structuring your social life in a disciplined way. Spending time with people of poor character increases the risk that you'll develop a poor character, too. Lastly, Buddha reminds us not to be satisfied with only a shallow understanding of what we're learning. This advice is particularly useful for students and virtually any person learning a new skill. Resist the temptation to learn just the bare minimum and only scratch the surface of the topic you're learning before you leave it altogether. Use your willpower to make sure that you thoroughly understand the fundamentals and then proceed to more advanced concepts, so that you deepen your understanding of what you are seeking to learn. Day 304, on the unsexy reality of work. How much time can you spare each day? For that interval, close the door, and it's short of a family emergency or the outbreak of World War III, don't let anybody in. Keep working. Keep working. Keep working. Stephen Pressfield. Some people believe that super-productive individuals have some kind of a secret or a natural inborn talent that allows them to produce so much output. However, the reality is unsexy. All they do is put themselves in front of their computers, or whatever else they need to do their job, close the door, and work. There are no miraculous solutions, no pills, frameworks, or blueprints that the most productive people have to be able to produce more than you do. When reading his masterpieces, it's difficult to imagine Stephen King simply sitting in his room and tapping away on his keyboard, but that's how his day-to-day life looks. If you're unsure whether you're doing it right because there's nothing attractive nor particularly outstanding in how you perform your daily work, stop worrying. Everyone else, including world-class performers, works in the exact same way. The only difference between you and them is that they have spent a bit more time than you have, working on their craft. But there's a level playing field here that requires the same resources from every participant: self-discipline, persistence, and an unbreakable resolve. Day 305, on the addiction to electronics. It is one of the unexpected disasters of the modern age that our new unparalleled access to information has come at the price of our capacity to concentrate on anything much. The deep, immersive thinking which produced many of civilization's most important achievements has come under unprecedented assault. We are almost never far from a machine that guarantees us a mesmerizing and libidinous escape from reality. The feelings and thoughts which we have omitted to experience while looking at our screens are left to find their revenge in involuntary twitches and our ever-decreasing ability to fall asleep when we should. Alain de Botton. There's no denying the fact that modern technology is a blessing. It allows us to learn, make money, connect with our loved ones and other people from all over the world, entertain ourselves, and with each passing year, do a whole lot more. Yet, there exists a danger of becoming addicted to electronics. Smartphones reduce our attention spans, easy access to information makes us too lazy to learn, and since it's now so easy to get new things delivered to your doorstep, we're constantly looking for a new shiny thing that will be the ultimate magic pill and solution to all of our problems. I don't believe that technology is our enemy, but I do believe that too much of it, as with excess in anything, leads to problems. Fortunately, where there's a problem, there's an opportunity to learn. You can dramatically improve your self-control by periodically reducing the amount of time spent using your phone or other devices. For example, while you're on vacation, resist the temptation to take a picture and share it on Facebook. Instead, focus on the present moment and engrave it in your memories, not your social feed. In the evening, at least every now and then, turn off all of the blue light emitting devices and spend an hour reading a book. You'll have an easier time falling asleep, and it will be more recharging, too. Whenever you catch yourself feeling anxious to check your phone or social media feeds, it's a sign that you're losing control. Re-establish it by periodically going on short technology fasts or deliberately checking your phone less often than usual. Day 306, on ignorance. There is nothing more frightful than ignorance in action. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Ignorance is a manifestation of laziness. Instead of actively choosing to expand your knowledge, you instead choose to willfully bypass the opportunity to educate yourself. A side effect of ignorance is the fostering of negligence and laxity, two traits that are the opposite of what a successful person should embrace in their life. Disregarding important information and choosing to not know when you do have access to education is like willfully asking for trouble. Being financially illiterate, for example, can lead to economic problems. Ignoring the needs of your partner instead of learning about what they need from you can destroy your relationship. Ignorance of the law can lead to prison. Ignoring new technologies and failing to learn about relevant modern inventions makes you less relevant in your professional life. Choose to be prepared rather than ignorant. Know too much instead of too little. Practice your self-discipline by constantly expanding your knowledge and don't discontinue your self-education when the truth is uncomfortable or leads to difficult questions. Day 307, on breaking your rules. Laws and principles are not for the times when there is no temptation, they are for such moments as this, when body and soul rise in mutiny against their rigor. If at my convenience I might break them, what would be their worth? Charlotte Bronte. We've already talked about adopting principles you'll live by in order to make your decision-making process more efficient and make choices that are more aligned with your true desires. It's important to note that those principles aren't for the times when everything goes smoothly. In fact, you don't necessarily need them when things are going well. It's primarily when there's a temptation to give up that you can experience the power of rules. You create them to prevent yourself from making the wrong choices, no matter what the circumstances are and which temptations you feel. For example, I have a rule that growth happens outside my comfort zone. I don't always feel like subjecting myself to discomfort and fear. However, there's a reason why I adopted such a rule. Without it, I know that I would back out more often, and thus miss out on those opportunities to grow. Whenever you feel a temptation to break your rule, remind yourself that it's there for a reason. Breaking it means that the principle and the reason why you chose it isn't important to you. What does breaking your own rules say about your reliability? Can you trust yourself if you fail to keep a promise that you made to yourself? Day 308, on not having money. If only I had more money is the easiest way to postpone the intense self-examination and decision-making necessary to create a life of enjoyment now and not later. Tim Ferriss. It's easy to say that you don't have money and consider it the ultimate excuse as to why you aren't working on your goals. I don't have money, so I won't start exercising because I can't afford fitness equipment. I don't have money, so I won't start saving money because how can I save money if I don't have it? I don't have money, so I won't start eating more healthily because healthy food is too expensive. Is it really true that nobody has ever become fit without having loads of money? The marketing techniques of the fitness industry lead you to think that expensive gear is needed to get fit, but many do without it, often is their own choice, and are more than fine. Are you really unable to save even $1 a day, just to establish a new positive habit? Are you saying that your every single purchase is necessary and can't be reduced even by a small fraction? Is healthy food really more expensive than junk food? Ask any person taking hypertension or diabetes medication caused by their own bad dietary choices whether they think that eating junk food was a more economical choice. You don't need to eat all organic or shop in expensive stores to eat healthily. Using money as an excuse is taking the easy way out, defaulting to mental laziness rather than seeking a solution. True, it helps you avoid some effort and hard thinking today, but costs you future improvements in your life and leads to a victim mentality. Week 45. Day 309, on the matters of right and wrong. Right is right even if no one is doing it, wrong is wrong even if everyone is doing it. Augustine of Hippo. More than 70% of U.S. adults aged 20 and over are overweight or obese. Does that mean that it's right to be obese? On average, American adults are watching 5 hours and 4 minutes of television per day. Does that mean that it's right to spend a third of your waking hours and well over a half of your leisure hours watching TV? If you're after self-improvement, you need to acknowledge that the right thing is right even when few people are doing it, and that no matter how many people are doing the wrong thing, it's still wrong. Don't comfort yourself by saying that your negative habits aren't that negative because so many people engage in them. Even if everybody exhibits such behaviors, it doesn't make them right. Have the courage and self-discipline to resist the temptation to compare yourself to the majority. Instead, if you must compare yourself to anyone, compare yourself to the people you want to emulate, even if they're but a speck in an infinite crowd of people who don't care in the slightest about becoming better. Day 310, on having good private teachers. From my great-grandfather, I learned not to have frequented public schools, and to have had good teachers at home, and to know that on such things a man should spend liberally. Marcus Aurelius. Here's one of the ultimate shortcuts for success. If you want to learn something or achieve a goal more quickly, find a good private teacher to guide you. Spend your money eagerly on one-on-one instruction, because expanding your knowledge and experience, unlike many other investments, is a surefire way to get a positive return. Group classes are extremely ineffective teaching tools because the teacher's attention is spread over too many students. If you have an hour-long class with a teacher and there are 9 other students, on average you only get 10 minutes of the teacher's attention. Even if the teacher's fee for a private class is 5 times higher, it's still cheaper than a group class, considering how much more you'll learn. Consider hiring a coach for any important endeavors or to kickstart a new change. For example, you can hire a nutrition expert to develop a meal plan for you or a fitness coach to design a workout plan for you. You don't necessarily have to keep paying them forever. The initial help can be sufficient to get you started, and then all you have to do is continue to practice what you learn from them until your needs change. One additional benefit of hiring a private coach is that once you start paying to get professional help, you'll start taking your objectives more seriously. It's easier to back out if there's nobody to whom you need to give an explanation as to why you want to give up. Day 311, on setting an example. Example has more followers than reason. Christian Nestle Bovey. Does it bother you that people laugh at your efforts, wonder why you're deliberately making your life so difficult, or feel otherwise puzzled about your recent efforts at making positive changes in your life? Save your time and energy trying to reason with them, it won't work. Instead, focus on your goals and set an example. Soon, when you achieve some results, people will start following your example, understand why you're doing what you're doing, or at least shut up. For example, people criticized me when I was on my diet, saying that I was already skinny and shouldn't lose more weight. However, I knew that I had to drop some additional pounds to uncover more muscle definition. Once I reached that goal and my muscles became more visible, it became clear that I had been right from the get-go. No amount of reasoning will make people change their minds in the same way as an example standing right in front of them. Similarly, don't try to persuade people to implement positive changes in their lives just because that's what you're doing. Leave them be, and if they notice your results, some will probably ask you for advice and try to achieve the same results themselves. Again, it's about setting the example, not expending empty words. Day 312, on learning without a desire to learn. Just as eating contrary to the inclination is injurious to the health, study without desire spoils the memory, and it retains nothing that it takes in. Leonardo da Vinci. You can learn almost anything you want as long as you have a desire to learn. Without a good reason why you want to learn something, or worse, being forced to learn it with no interest whatsoever on your part, as is often the case with college students, you'll retain little of what you learn. The reason is simple: the human brain needs to be picky about what it remembers and what doesn't, so if you consider a fly on the wall as more exciting than the subject of your study, you'll be more likely to remember the fly's position during the entire hour of the class than the topic of your lesson. For example, I once took a few Russian classes to prepare myself for a trip to Kyrgyzstan, a rugged mountainous country in Central Asia. However, unlike with Spanish, a language I speak fluently and am fond of, I couldn't develop an interest in Russian. My classes weren't particularly effective because, deep down, I had little desire to learn that language. There was no positive emotional connection with it. That's why I so strongly emphasize that each endeavor, including the goal of learning a new skill, needs to start with a strong desire. If you don't have that, you'll be fighting an uphill battle. If you're forced to learn something and are struggling, try to find something interesting about the subject. For example, you might find that Russian grammar is not particularly interesting, but perhaps trying to improve your accent in it is fun for you. You can also use educational resources that teach in an entertaining way. YouTube videos can be a good source for that. When it comes to learning languages, I'm a big fan of watching TV series that are broadcast in that same language. If you still can't find anything exciting in learning the topic itself, turn toward the reward it offers you, such as a promotion at work or being able to graduate from your learning program, and use that, the reward, as your sole motivation. Be careful, though, extrinsic motivators are weak motivators, and it's always better to combine them with internal rewards, like the enjoyment you get from learning or from the challenge it poses for you. Day 313, on what you demand from life. Remember, no more effort is required to aim high in life, to demand abundance and prosperity, than is required to accept misery and poverty. Napoleon Hill. It all comes down to what you demand from life. Accept nothing less than abundance and prosperity, and if you combine it with diligent work, you'll eventually get it. Tolerate misery and poverty, come up with rationalizations about why you're miserable, and bad fortune will stay in your life. It's important to understand that it takes virtually the same amount of effort to come up with excuses as it is to find reasons why you can accomplish something. You can direct your energy either way, but only one of them leads to success. The next time you catch yourself thinking that you're destined to be unsuccessful and that you should accept your bad fortune, change your thoughts, remind yourself about how dissatisfied you are with your current circumstances and come up with reasons why you will be successful instead of continuing as you are. For example, while I was trying to build a successful business and failed one time after another, I still kept reminding myself that I would never tolerate being an employee. Nothing would have stopped me from making my goal come true. I would never accept anything else than abundance and prosperity. They may sound trite, but some self-help bromides are actually true. Your attitude and expectations do impact your life in a big way. Day 314, on neatness. People exert less self-control after seeing a messy desk than after seeing a clean desk. Roy Baumeister. Here's an easy self-discipline hack for today: clean your immediate surroundings and benefit from improved self-control. A messy desk and the unpleasant thought in the back of your head reminding you that eventually you'll have to clean it occupies precious mental space you could otherwise spend on something more useful. Chaotic immediate environments are also distracting, and thus lower your productivity. In addition to taking up both physical and mental space, clutter can also affect how you feel about yourself. People feel better when they take a shower, shave their faces, put on makeup or perform any other grooming habit, and they feel worse when their appearance is not up to their standards. A messy room has a similar effect. It indicates that the person working there isn't organized or lacks the self-discipline to keep it tidy. Keeping your room neat and tidy demonstrates in a physical way that you are organized and self-disciplined, and that will subsequently affect your inner world, too, just like dressing for success gives a small boost to one's confidence. Day 315, on the cost of education and ignorance. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Ann Landers. One of the worst excuses you can use to rationalize that you can't educate yourself is to say that you don't have the money needed to do so. For one, ignorance is more expensive than education. One valuable piece of advice from a book can recoup its price 1,000 times or more, while committing one big mistake that educating yourself might have prevented can lead to devastating losses. A person who has never taken the time to learn how to eat healthily, something a $15 book can rectify, can ultimately pay for it with their life, while a person new to fitness may pay for their ignorance with a painful injury, something they could have prevented by watching a few free videos on proper form. Second, in today's world, education is available freely to anyone who has access to the internet. While a private teacher can help you immensely, you can also learn a lot on your own, from free videos, tutorials, articles, and books. For example, I taught myself how to write. I've never taken any formal courses, yet I'm now a best-selling author. How to create and modify websites. I'm not a programmer, yet I can design a professional website using available resources, or how to promote my books, even though I don't have a degree in marketing. It's important to escape the paradigm of education equals a college degree. You aren't educated merely because a piece of a paper says so. In fact, it's often the opposite. Many students treat college as an extension of their childhood instead of an opportunity to learn and gain experience. Meanwhile, those who skip going to college often gain valuable, real-world experience that they can build upon. When hiring contractors to help me in my business, I never look at their formal education. All I care about is their reviews, portfolio, and proposal specifying how they can help me. It's what they can specifically do for me that counts, not mere words that may or may not confirm that they're educated. If you aren't sure where to find high-quality education online for free or for a low price, check out Udemy, Coursera, Khan Academy, Stanford Online, Harvard Extension, Open Yale Courses, Code Academy, or simply look for the topic that interests you on YouTube, Amazon, or in the iTunes Store. Week 46. Day 316, on doing what you love. Every man loves what he is good at. Thomas Shadwell. If at first you don't fall in love with the process necessary to make your dream come true, don't despair. As long as you don't hate it, everything is fine. The love for the process comes along with consistent improvements. It's impossible, or at least unlikely, to eventually not fall in love with what you're becoming good at. For example, many entrepreneurs think that they need to do what they love in order for their business to succeed. In reality, what matters most is that their business fulfills a certain need or solves a certain problem. If I hire your company to clean my house, I don't care if you're passionate about it. All I care about is whether you can do it well, on time, and for a reasonable price. Initially, you might not love being in the cleaning business, but if your business starts doing well and you become good at running it, you'll probably enjoy doing it, and thanks to that, it will get even easier to grow it. The same applies to any other goal. Get started, make sure that you feel at least neutral about it, and be patient, because once you start getting better at it, the process will become addictive and you won't want to stop. Day 317, on thinking you're able. They are able because they think they are able. Virgil. It might be a trite reminder, but it's nonetheless frequently true. People often achieve impossible feats merely because they think they are able to do so. If you don't think that you're able, you either won't try at all, or if you try, it will be a half-hearted attempt that is almost guaranteed to fail. In rock climbing, I sometimes deliberately try routes or single moves well above my ability. I've found that sometimes the mere belief in your abilities can lead you to climbing a difficult route that, without such a belief, would result in a spectacular failure. In business, the companies that grow the fastest are led by entrepreneurs who don't set any limits for themselves. If they decide to sell their services to a Fortune 500 company, they'll start figuring out how to do it instead of wasting time pondering whether they're able to do so. In sports, it's often not the training in itself that makes an athlete successful. It's what they tell themselves during the competition that makes the difference between winning or losing. The next time you face a big, seemingly insurmountable challenge or find yourself in a situation with a low chance of emerging victoriously, assume that you're able to overcome it and then act as if it were true. Life isn't a fairy tale, so it won't always work. However, if you assume that you aren't able and that will manifest in your hesitant actions, you'll be always doing yourself a disservice. Day 318, on the inconvenience of change. Change is not made without inconvenience, even from worse to better. Richard Hooker. If you want to remodel your house, you expect and accept the inconveniences it will cause. There's no way to replace the old windows, tiles, doors, or kitchen cabinets without making a mess. Repainting your bedroom means that you have to move furniture to another room. Giving your bathroom a makeover means that you'll have to use a different bathroom or go to a friend's house to take a shower. You accept the disturbance that remodeling causes in your life because you want your house to be nice and cozy. Likewise, if you want to change something in your life, in order for the old to go, there also must be some mess involved in the process of replacing it with the new. You might feel cranky upon waking up earlier than usual. You might be exhausted after the first several workouts. You might despair while you are trying to figure out how to learn a new skill. Whenever you feel this way and feel tempted to give up, frustrated by how inconvenient the process of change is for you, remember that to go from worse to better, some minor, and sometimes major, annoyances are par for the course. Get over it and get on with your life. Day 319, on learning from refusal. One never knows a man till he has refused him something, and studied the effect of the refusal. One never knows himself till he has denied himself. The altar of sacrifice is the touchstone of character. Orrin Philip Guilford. Let's be clear, denying yourself nice things is neither easy nor fun. However, in addition to the incredible benefits it brings in the form of increased self-control, it's also a powerful test of your character and a self-discovery tool. For one, self-refusal provides an opportunity to understand what you need in your life and what you only think you need in your life. Unless you stay away from what you consider your necessities for a period of time, you won't know whether they're really necessities, after all. For example, on many of my adventures, I had to sleep in less than comfortable circumstances, such as in a car parked by the road or in a soaking wet tent with homeless dogs fighting outside. I had always thought that I wouldn't be able to recharge in such circumstances, but often I was actually more recharged after several hours of such uncomfortable sleep than in my own bed. What I considered a necessity was in fact a luxury. This realization made me a stronger person. I expanded my comfort zone and now I know I can handle sleeping in a wide variety of weird places. Second, refusing yourself pleasant things can show you the depth of your addiction for them. For example, I used to eat a few pieces of dark chocolate daily. I assumed it wasn't a big deal and I thought I could stop eating it whenever I wanted to. However, when I decided to take a break from eating all kinds of sweets, I felt immense cravings. Denying myself a few pieces of dark chocolate and innocent pleasure made me realize that I had been addicted to it. Finally, while we were young, it was our parents or other caretakers who told us we couldn't get something. We fumed and protested, but there was nothing we could do about it. This way, unbeknownst to ourselves, we learned that we couldn't always get everything we wanted, and I dare say it was one of the most powerful lessons in self-discipline a child could receive. Today, as adults, most of us don't have such gatekeepers. If you want to eat chocolate, you can go to the store and buy it, nobody will force you to eat broccoli instead. If you want to spend the entire Sunday in bed, nobody will kick you out of it and force you to go out and play with other kids. This freedom feels good, but there's also danger in it. By spoiling ourselves this way, we eventually do ourselves the same disservice as parents who spoil their children. Self-refusal, in essence, can act as an emergency brake, stopping us from spiraling into overindulgence. Day 320, on change as a cold bath. A great change in life is like a cold bath in winter, we all hesitate at the first plunge. Letitia Elizabeth Landon. Hesitation is normal when you face a big change in life. After all, you're facing the unknown, and what's unknown is scary. In the end, though, the longer you stare into the abyss, the more frightening it appears, and the more difficult it is to jump into it. For this reason, it might be useful to think of a great change as being similar to taking a cold bath. The less time you give yourself to worry about how cold it might be, the more likely you are to actually jump into it. For example, instead of wondering how tiring and uncomfortable it will be to go running, just put on your sports shoes and get out of the house. The more time you spend meditating on how unpleasant it might possibly be, the more likely it is that hesitation will kill any remnants of willpower you still have inside of you. When decluttering your house, the same strategy can help you resist the temptation to keep things out of sentiment. Some old items are indeed so valuable that it might be worth it to keep them, but more often than not, people who tend to accumulate things use this rationalization for every piece of junk. Give yourself 3 seconds. During those 3 seconds, if you can't come up with any powerful memory that the item gives you, throw it away. If you need to make a difficult phone call or have an uncomfortable conversation, hesitation will make it even scarier. By taking the plunge as quickly as possible, you'll prevent your anxiety from growing and probably resolve the situation more effectively than if you were to wait. Day 321, on being the creator of your circumstances. Man is not the creature of circumstances, circumstances are the creatures of men. Benjamin Disraeli. It would be nice to blame our circumstances for everything bad that happens in our lives. Finally, there would be something else that is responsible for our deficiencies, inaction, lack of willpower, etc. Unfortunately, or rather, fortunately, we're the creators of the circumstances in which we find ourselves today. While you can't change where you were born, you can change where you live. While you can't change who your parents were, you can choose your teachers and mentors. While you can't change whether you were born blind, deaf, mute, or with a different physical disability, you can change how you think about it. So many people accept their circumstances for what they are, instead of acknowledging that they always have some control over them, even if it's just the ability to change how you think about them. If you don't like something about your circumstances, you can change them, accept them, or find power in them. If you don't like where you live, you can move to a different place. If for some reason you can't do that, you can accept where you live and focus on other aspects of your life there. You can also find power in your environment and discover the hidden benefits of where you live. For example, a small town might not be great for job prospects, but your costs of living are lower. Don't make yourself a victim by believing that you're a creature of circumstances, or you might as well give up any hope for a better future. Day 322, on subtraction. We survive on too little sleep, wolf down fast foods on the run, fuel up with coffee and cool down with alcohol and sleeping pills. Faced with relentless demands at work, we become short-tempered and easily distracted. We return home from long days at work feeling exhausted and often experience our families not as a source of joy and renewal, but as one more demand in an already overburdened life. Jim Lure. It makes me exhausted just to read this quote, let alone imagine that it's possible to achieve any kind of positive results while living such a life. If you're overburdened and feel like you have no control over your life, it's time to change your life philosophy from the philosophy of addition to the philosophy of subtraction. Let me explain. The philosophy of addition is thinking that more is better. It means that you're afraid to miss out on opportunities and that you say yes to everything, worried that saying no will make you unpopular or that you'll appear selfish or lazy. You constantly add and add, thinking that it's through adding that your life gets better. Of course, in a certain way it does. The more you learn, the better you are. Generally speaking, the more money you have, the easier your life is. However, this doesn't apply to obligations and your calendar. The more tasks you have in your schedule and the more duties you need to attend to, the more difficult it is to stop, reflect, and decide what deserves your attention and what doesn't. For this reason, I suggest adopting the philosophy of subtraction. You believe that less is more. You think twice before you accept any new responsibilities. You constantly seek to simplify your life and free up your calendar instead of stacking one task on top of another. You feel proud of having leisure time instead of feeling guilty about it. As an exercise for today, think of just one regular task in your schedule that you could eliminate in order to make your life less of a burden. Perhaps you can hire a maid to save time spent keeping the house clean. Maybe you already have enough money, but not enough time, and it would make sense to reduce the number of hours spent at work and accept the trade-off for the sake of your well-being. Maybe you can move closer to your workplace, or the opposite, start working at home. Perhaps it would be a good investment to use the services of a home meal delivery company and save the time spent on cooking and grocery shopping. Subtract the unessential from your life to increase your focus on what is essential, but doesn't get enough attention because of all the other, less important obligations. Week 47. Day 323, on prolonged sitting. Because a dramatic reduction in energy expenditure was not accompanied by reduced appetite, prolonged sitting may promote excess energy intake, leading to weight gain in both men and women. Kirsten Granados. Research shows that even though there's a dramatic reduction in energy expenditure when we sit, our appetites don't drop down accordingly. This means that the more time you spend sitting, the more of a caloric surplus you create, and you gain weight more easily. This poses a big problem for self-discipline because no amount of self-control will help you lose weight if you don't expend much energy, but your appetite behaves as if you did. If you sit at work, consider standing up for at least a period of time when working. Stand-up desks are getting more and more popular, so it might be worth it to consider buying one or building it yourself. If it's not possible to work standing up, at least get up every now and then and perform some quick exercises to offset some of the negative consequences of sitting. At home, one of the biggest offenders is mindlessly watching TV. You can greatly reduce the amount of time spent sitting by eliminating cable TV and only watching specific movies or TV shows. Channel hopping puts you in a zombie-like state, which, when combined with snacking, can make it almost impossible to ever get in shape. Think of sitting as a debt you need to repay. Fortunately, you can repay the debt not only with actual exercise, but also with little actions: standing up in the kitchen, performing household chores, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, parking a little bit farther away from the entrance to the supermarket. Strive to move as much as you can, and you'll reduce the negative impact prolonged sitting has on your well-being and increase your chances of successfully shedding that belly fat. Day 324, on ignoring the world when you're down. So long as the man with ambition is a failure, the world will tell him to let go of his ideal, but when his ambition is realized, the world will praise him for the persistence and the determination that he manifested during his dark hours, and everybody will point to his life as an example for coming generations. This is invariably the rule. Therefore, pay no attention to what the world says when you are down. Be determined to get up, to reach the highest goal you have in view, and you will. Christian D. Larson. Larson's words were as true during his era. He wrote those words in 1912, as they are now. If you're ambitious, something that most people lack, you're already considered a little weird by society's standards. People will try to persuade you to give up or take it easy because it's a threat to their own egos. If you, a person just like them, manages to turn his or her dreams into reality, what does it say about their capabilities? This invariably changes when you reach success. While you are down, few people stop to lend a helping hand or offer you words of support. When you're successful, suddenly everyone proclaims that they knew from the get-go that you would succeed. If you're currently struggling and feeling down, make an effort to surround yourself with positive input as if you wanted to build a protective bubble around yourself. Keep away from negative people who would love to finish you off with their nasty remarks. Get up, try again, and keep going until you get there. Take note of who was there for you while you were struggling and don't forget to reward them with your gratitude. As for the others, forget them. Fair weather friends are no friends at all. Day 325. 325, on being the child of your own works. Everyone is the son of his own works. Miguel de Cervantes. Here's a fun metaphor for today: you're the parent of yourself, and hence, you're the child of your own decisions, habits, and beliefs. Would you raise your children in the same way as you're raising yourself? Are you being a good parent, ensuring that their child grows up with self-discipline, or are you lax, constantly cutting your child some slack and ultimately turning them into a weak-willed adult? Are you understanding and supportive, or critical and mean when your child makes errors while trying to fail their way to success? Lastly, are you setting a good example? Do you expect one thing from your child and then do the opposite when they aren't looking? Day 326, on your deeds determining you. Our deeds determine us, as much as we determine our deeds. George Eliot. You control what actions you take or don't take, but in the long run, the actions that you take or don't take also control you because they determine who you are. As confusing as it sounds, there's an important lesson hiding in there. When pondering what to do or not do, ask yourself what the person you'd like to become would or wouldn't do. We define people by actions they take, so if you change the actions you take, you'll also change your own definition of yourself. For example, a person who runs often is a runner, while a person who constantly exposes themselves to danger for the fun of it is a daredevil. On the opposite end of the spectrum, a person who sits on the sofa the entire day is a slacker, while a person who never stands up for themselves is a doormat. The primary determinant of a runner, daredevil, slacker, or doormat, rather than a specific adjective or trait, is what actions they take or don't take. Each action of yours, just like each thought or habit you have, has an impact on the direction your personal change is going to take. Think beyond the immediate consequences and consider each deed as a building block of the new you. What actions are congruent with the person you desire to become and what deeds aren't? When thinking of the person you want to become in the future, along with setting new goals, make a list of actions the desired future you will engage in regularly and the actions that person will refuse to perform. For example, if you want to become a more positive person, some of the actions you'll engage in regularly include smiling, laughing, and expressing your gratitude, while some of the actions you'll refuse to perform would be complaining, brooding, and criticizing. Day 327, on the biggest person standing in your way. You might occasionally feel that some people are standing in the way and slowing your progress, but in reality the biggest person standing in your way is you. Others can stop you temporarily, you are the only one who can do it permanently. Zig Ziglar. When others sabotage your efforts to implement a positive change in your life, it's tempting to blame them for your lack of results. However, while they can affect your endeavors temporarily, in the end it's only you who can torpedo your dreams. For one, ultimately it's you who makes a judgment of what the action of another person means to you and your goals. You can approach somebody's effort to sabotage your dreams as an excuse to give up, or you can treat it as an obstacle that is an inherent part of the process. A friend who taunts you about your lack of results when dieting might discourage you, or they might boost your resolve to show them what you're capable of. Second, when other people try to limit your dreams, question your abilities, or tell you to stop having your head in the clouds, ultimately it's not their belief that counts, it's what you yourself think about the feasibility of your goals. Will you be bothered by people who doubt that you'll ever build a successful business? Of course you will. Will they make you doubt that you'll succeed? That would happen only if you let them, by valuing their words more than your own belief in your abilities. Finally, when others are required to make your dreams come true and it seems as if they're actively against you, say, a gatekeeper who won't let you get through to the CEO of the company you'd like to sell your services to, yet again, they are not the ones who can destroy your goal. It's still up to you, you can come up with a different way to reach the CEO or develop a completely different approach to sell your service and grow your business. Others can slow your progress, but it doesn't mean that you're powerless. When somebody stands in your way, jump over them, crawl underneath them, go around them, or punch them in the face, just kidding with the last one. Day 328, on anger. If you don't want to be cantankerous, don't feed your temper, or multiply incidents of anger. Suppress the first impulse to be angry, then begin to count the days on which you don't get mad. Epictetus. Anger, or any other emotion that leads to impulsive decisions that you later regret, is an enemy of self-discipline. While it's not always possible to catch yourself feeling angry before it converts into a full-blown attack of rage, whenever you can, act quickly and suppress the anger instead of feeding it. Anger that compounds on itself will quickly take away any remnants of self-control that you may have. For example, when I'm stuck in a traffic jam, annoyed at other drivers or at the traffic lights seeming to take hours to change, I try to redirect my growing anger into another emotion, stop myself from cursing, or at least try to curse in a humorous way that won't feed my frustration. That way, I prevent my anger from taking control of the situation. It's a simple technique, but don't let it fool you, it's one of the most effective strategies to overcome attacks of unnecessary anger. If you want to eliminate frequent attacks of anger from your life, begin counting the days on which you successfully suppress the first impulse to be angry. After a 7-day winning streak, you won't want to lose all of your progress because of such a trivial thing as another driver driving too slowly or things temporarily not going your way. Will this strategy always work? Obviously not. Everyone gets angry from time to time. However, if you make a conscious effort not to feed your temper, you'll reprogram your default behavior, greatly reduce the frequency of losing your temper, and gain better control over your emotional state. Day 329, on a change in beliefs. All personal breakthroughs begin with a change in beliefs. So how do we change? The most effective way is to get your brain to associate massive pain to the old belief. You must feel deep in your gut that not only has this belief cost you pain in the past, but it's costing you in the present and, ultimately, can only bring you pain in the future. Tony Robbins. You won't change until you recognize your bad beliefs and habits as your enemies. The best way to change them is to associate them with the pain that they've been steadily delivering to you ever since you first adopted them. For example, I overcame my habit of staying up late and waking up at 1 to 2 p.m. largely because of associating it with the depression I felt each winter because of a lack of sunlight. Upon realizing that my habit and belief that I was a night owl had cost me so much and would bring me so much more pain in the future, I switched my routine. Today I can hardly think of a better feeling than getting up early and being super productive from beginning my day in the early morning. What are your habits and beliefs costing you? You need to recognize all the different kinds of costs they have generated, are generating, and will continue to generate in the future if you don't make some changes in your life. You will only be ready to change when you feel deep down in your gut how detrimental they are to you and your life. Week 48. Day 330, on turning back right at the very end. Don't turn back when you are just at the goal. Publius Cyrus. Many people have a tendency to back out right at the end of the journey, mere steps from accomplishing their long-term goal. If they knew that success was around the corner, they would find it in themselves to keep going. However, since it's so difficult to diagnose whether success is right around the corner or still a long way off, it happens that many throw in the towel mere seconds from their opponent falling to the ground. To prevent such an unfortunate situation from happening, from now on assume that if you've been working on a given goal for a long period of time and you're down on your knees, ready to accept defeat, it's the last test. Stand up, brush yourself off and take a few more steps. Give yourself a week or two more and make the last effort. If your situation doesn't change and there's still no success around the corner, accept a temporary defeat and step away to recover. If it does change and you meet success, you'll be glad you'd used the last remnants of energy to keep going. Day 331, on finding an easier way. Once you figure out what it is you really want, ask yourself if there's a better way to get it than to go down the path you're planning on going down. Maybe you want to be rich so that you can travel all of the time. But do you really need to be rich to do that, or is there any easier way? For example, I wanted to be rich to buy an island, but then figured out how to do it without going through the hassle of getting rich first. Tynan. There's nothing wrong or dishonorable in finding an easier way to accomplish your goals. If you can make it easier for yourself to make your dreams come true, given that it's legal and moral to do so, do it. Anything that reduces the amount of self-discipline and mental energy you need to reach your goals is a good thing. For example, if you want to travel all of the time but you currently don't have $1 million or $2 million in the bank, it doesn't mean that now you need to dedicate a decade of your life to making millions. You could achieve this same goal by doing such things as finding a location-independent job, getting a flexible job, working on a cruise ship or as a flight attendant, starting an online business, or working on short-term contracts in different countries. If you want to become fit, you can take fitness classes at your local gym and hate it every time you go there, or you can find a type of a physical activity you actually and genuinely enjoy. If you want to lose weight, you can go on a restrictive diet that makes you feel miserable, or you can adopt lifestyle changes and embrace nutritional habits that give you some leeway while still helping you get thinner. Oh, and for the curious, Tynan managed to buy an island without getting rich first by buying the island together with a few friends. Day 332, on a lack of variety. Routine releases us from the work and willpower required for choice. Mark Sisson. When you ask several people for their first thought about what a lack of variety means, you'll probably get answers with negative connotations. To them, a lack of variety means boredom or being stuck in a rut. While routine can indeed be bad for you and your goals, it can also be a good thing. For example, in dieting, eating the same meals over and over again, but changing them every several weeks or so when you get bored of them, simplifies the entire process. You no longer have to carefully calculate every macronutrient of a different food because you always eat the same things and can easily eyeball their caloric content. In fitness, dedicating yourself to one sport or type of physical activity makes it easier to establish a habit of regular exercise. You don't have to be watchful about how much you move every given week because you have workouts scheduled on the same days, lasting the same amount of time, each probably with the same intensity. In managing your productivity, waking up and going to sleep at the same time ensures that the structure of your day is always the same, which allows you to maximize your productivity and reduce the amount of time spent figuring out when to attend to each task. There can be more freedom in a lack of variety than in living your life without such a restriction. For a period of time, say, a week, test this approach by limiting your choices and letting your routine make your decisions for you. Day 333, on happiness as a duty. It is our duty to be happy. Why? Because our moods and happiness or unhappiness are catching. they inevitably infect other people. When we are happy, we make other people happy, especially the people closest to us, physically, at home, at work, socially, and even people we speak to on the phone, online, or by email. And, vitally important, there is the multiplier effect. I am happy, I make you happier, you make them happier, they make yet other people, whom you may never know, happier. The effect is incalculable, and it is always large. The same is true in reverse when you are miserable. So time spent being miserable is antisocial. Stop it now. Relax, change your mood, be happy, and make the world hum rather than shudder. Richard Koch. Just like you need self-discipline to become fitter, save money, learn a foreign language, or keep your house clean, so you need it to become and remain happy. As we've already discussed, in some ways, being a negative person is being a lazy person. It takes more work to think positive thoughts, so we choose to feel unhappy because it's an easier state to access. We could just as well invest some energy and feel good. Whether you're happy or not wouldn't mean much for your goals if it weren't for the fact that a positive attitude is one of the keys to accomplishment. It makes you believe that you can achieve the impossible, boosts your courage, and keeps you going when you're hit with one difficulty after another. Consequently, you need to work on happiness, just like on any other important aspect of a self-disciplined life. If you find it challenging to put yourself in a good mood, think of happiness as a moral duty. You owe it to your loved ones and strangers to be happy because your mood, to a smaller or a larger extent, will infect them. When you have the flu, you don't deliberately go to crowded places or sneeze near your loved ones, you try your best not to infect them. Why would happiness be any different? Exert some self-discipline to think happy thoughts and eradicate the bad mood. It's within your control to feel great or miserable. Strive to infect others with happiness, not sadness. A great side effect is that the happier you make other people, the easier it will be to remain happy yourself. Day 334, on self-criticism. Self-criticism is consistently associated with less motivation and worse self-control. Kelly McGonigal. Berating yourself for your failures simply doesn't work. Instead of motivating you to do better next time, it only brings you down, causing you to be even less likely to exert your willpower. In fact, being too harsh towards yourself can turn one slip-up into a full-blown crisis or even into giving up on your goals because you become convinced that you're too weak to change your life. Instead of self-criticism, give yourself self-compassion. Whenever you fail to meet your standards, remind yourself that you were probably doing your best, but this time it simply didn't work. Human beings aren't perfect, so don't assume that you'll have 100% adherence to a diet, a workout program, or any other resolution you have. Then, instead of looking for reasons why you suck because you failed, look for lessons in your slip-up and vow to do better next time, being careful to not repeat the same mistakes. Being kind to yourself will ultimately motivate you more to try again than poisoning yourself with your critical voice ever could. Day 335, on wishing. When people say I wish, they don't really believe it. I wish I could save money or I wish I could lose weight means, but I don't believe it's possible. Brian Tracy. One effective, and at first glance, perhaps a bit naive, strategy to help you develop success-friendly habits, traits, and behaviors is to change your language. The words that you use have a direct impact on you. If you tell yourself that you wish you could be different, you're essentially telling the world that it's not within your control to change. How likely are you to change yourself if the words like I wish come out of your mouth so frequently? How much confidence will you have in your ability to reach your goals if you don't believe it's possible that you can achieve them? Set a simple challenge. For the next 7 days, whenever you catch yourself saying you wish you could do something, stop and rethink it. Is it really something that you will never be able to accomplish, such as become younger, or is it just your brain serving you your own limiting beliefs? If it's the latter, make a list of immediate actions you can take to transform I wish into here's how I'm going to do it. Day 336, on remembering that your time is limited. Thinking that we have ample time to do things later is the greatest myth, the greatest hang-up, and the greatest poison. If we knew that tonight we were going to go blind, we would take a longing, last real look at every blade of grass, every cloud formation. If we knew that we were going to be deaf tomorrow, we would treasure every single sound. Pema Chodron. Death can be the ultimate motivator. In a 2007 movie, The Bucket List, it's their impending death that motivates two terminally ill men to embark on a road trip with a wish list of things they want to do before their illnesses claim their lives. From time to time, I like to imagine that I have a few months of life left. I ask myself if I would die fulfilled or if there would be something I would deeply regret not having done. Taking a few minutes to imagine such a scenario is a helpful exercise in discovering your true priorities and serves as a powerful boost of motivation to act now. Thinking about death is morbid, but ultimately can also act as an inspiring experience that can shake you out of inaction. Imagine your last hours and think that you'll never be able to do the things that you've wanted to do your entire life, but never acted upon. The only thing left is regret that when you could have done them, you chose to put those things off, and now you can only imagine how it would feel to accomplish them. Now realize that you're still here, still alive and kicking, and there's still a possibility of making your dreams come true. Why on earth are you still putting off those important goals, knowing that one day you'll no longer be able to pursue them? Week 49. Day 337, on a coin flip. When you are undecided on a difficult decision, flip a coin. Why? Because when the coin is in the air, you suddenly know which side you really want. Nathan Barry. This simple trick is one of the most powerful decision-making tools. Whenever you're hesitant, let fate decide for you and you'll immediately realize which option you prefer to take. If you don't have a coin, name your options A, B, and C, etc., and ask your friend to randomly pick one letter. If there's nobody around you and you need to make a quick decision, randomly pick one of the options and ask yourself how you feel now that you've decided on it. We often know in our gut which option is better, but we get stuck in the decision-making process out of a fear of missing out on something that another option might offer us. Turning the final decision over to something that is outside of your control amplifies your inner voice and leads to better decisions. Day 338, on I don't versus I can't. I don't is experienced as a choice, so it feels empowering. It's an affirmation of your determination and willpower. I can't isn't a choice, it's a restriction, it's being imposed upon you. So thinking I can't undermines your sense of power and personal agency. Heidi Grant Halverson. Be careful not to say I can't whenever you're working on implementing a new positive change in your life that requires you to give up something, such as going on a diet. Thinking of your decision in terms of a restriction, I can't do it, inevitably leads to discontent and approaching your change as a short-term solution. Admitting that a change is your choice by saying I don't do it lends itself to treating it as a permanent identity shift. A related technique you can use to give up something that's bad for you is to associate it with the discomfort it leads to and deciding that you no longer want to suffer from it. You aren't saying that you can't do this thing any longer and thereby think of it as a restriction. You're saying that you don't do this thing because it's your own choice, dictated by your wish to avoid the unpleasant consequences. For example, I was once a big lover of potatoes and they greatly contributed to me being overweight. When testing how certain foods affected me, I realized that potatoes made me bloated, tired, and led to digestive issues. Just like that, I stopped eating potatoes that I had been previously eating in copious amounts at least 3 times a week. I'm sure that if it weren't for uncovering my food intolerance and a conscious decision not to eat potatoes anymore, I would still be eating them. A restriction in the form of I can't eat potatoes wouldn't work. Catch yourself whenever you say I can't and replace it with I don't or I choose not to do it. It's a small change in your vocabulary, but the way you think about your changes can impact whether they become permanent or are only short-lived. Day 339, on appreciating your body. When all is said and done, the most important thing is to respect and appreciate the body you have. It's great to strive for physical perfection, but the journey matters more than the destination. Al Cavadlo. If you have a car, you probably regularly take it to the car wash. You drive it carefully in order not to scratch it or ding it. You respect it and appreciate it because it's your vehicle. Sadly, while most people take great pains to keep their cars pristine, they don't think about their bodies in the same way. They fail to notice that while a car is replaceable, their body is the only body they're ever going to get. If you're constantly failing to introduce healthy habits, think of it as an expression of respect toward your body. I know, it sounds cheesy, but ultimately many people fail to care for their bodies because they never adopt a good, empowering metaphor to help them in their efforts. Make exercise primarily about self-respect and appreciation for your body, and not an obsession to build a perfect body, which often leads to so much pressure that people completely give up. It doesn't matter if you're obese, if you can't run for more than a minute, or if you can't perform a single push-up. What matters right here and right now is to learn to start caring for your body in the same way as you care for your other prized possessions. Once healthy living becomes a habit, just like taking your car to the car wash or cleaning your house, then you can set more specific fitness goals to further strengthen your body. For now, your only preoccupation should be to change your actions so that they manifest your respect toward the only body you have. Day 340, on better learning. Research shows that people who follow Strategy B read 10 pages at once, then close the book and write a one-page summary, remember 50% more material over the long term than people who follow Strategy A read 10 pages 4 times in a row and try to memorize them. Daniel Coyle. Books can change your life, but only if you read them with the intention to learn. Merely reading a book from cover to cover, closing it, and immediately finding another book to learn from might work as entertainment when reading fiction. However, it doesn't work with nonfiction. In order to learn, you need to exert a bit more self-discipline and read the book, along with noticing and remembering its key points. You can highlight important parts, make notes, or write short summaries. What might be an even better idea than highlighting, making notes, or writing summaries is to make a bullet point list of its practical applications in your life. A summary can be helpful if you need to memorize the information in itself, but a bullet point list of practical implications will be more valuable if you're after a real education, changing your life through what you read. Start today with this book. Grab a notepad or open a new document and make a list of its several practical applications of the advice you've discovered in this book. We're on day 340, so I'm pretty sure you can make a list of at least 10, if not 100, possible changes you can introduce in your life to instill more self-discipline. Day 341, on when not to make important decisions. I've found that it's a good rule to never make an important decision when your emotions are in control. I try to program myself in advance to remember this rule when I need it. When I'm in an emotional state, either positive or negative, I try to keep just enough intellect working to tell me one thing: don't decide now. I wait until I've relaxed and can think more clearly. Harry Brown. If you want to greatly increase the chances of making a bad decision, make it when you're under the influence of strong emotions, either negative or positive. The same is true in reverse. To make a good decision, only do so when you're in a neutral emotional state, relaxed enough to think clearly and weigh all the pros and cons. For example, I have a rule to never agree to make any big purchases over the phone or in person without giving myself at least a day to think it over. That way, I can think objectively about whether I really need to make such a purchase, and if so, research whether I was given a good offer. Establish a similar rule in your life and always wait before making any big decisions. This also applies to setting big new goals. It's better to set them when you're in a neutral state of mind than when you're pumped up, because if you do so while being influenced by a temporary strong rush of endorphins, you'll probably overestimate your abilities and set goals that are beyond your reach. Day 342, on doing the best you can with what you have. Success means doing the best we can with what we have. Success is the doing, not the getting, in the trying, not the triumph. Success is a personal standard reaching for the highest that is in us, becoming all that we can be. If we do our best, we are a success. Success is the maximum utilization of the ability that you have. Zig Ziglar. One of the best ways to destroy your resolve is to associate success with results alone. If you fail to generate any results for a long time, as is often the case when working on difficult, long-term goals, the belief that you're only doing well if you're getting immediate results will discourage you from continuing. The proper approach is to espouse the belief that success means doing the best you can with what you have. Regardless of the outcome, as long as you're doing your best, you're keeping yourself to the highest standard, and that's what matters the most. The results might come today, tomorrow, 6 months from now, or even a decade later. Obviously, it's not like you're pursuing your goals for the sake of pursuing them. You want to get something for your efforts. However, it will be hard to make your dreams come true if you only obsess about the end result and forget to focus on the current process. After all, ultimately it's the journey itself that will shape you to become the person deserving the goal you're after. A successful businessman isn't successful because he runs a successful business. He's successful because he stuck to his business, despite difficulties, failures, and the seemingly hopeless situations in which he found himself. He wouldn't have built a successful business if he had only defined himself by the results, which are rarely anything to brag about anyway, at least in the first several years of running a business. A successful athlete isn't successful because she has received a medal. She's successful because she's been training harder than her competitors and kept going despite pain, exhaustion, and discomfort. She would have failed to become a successful athlete if she had obsessed solely about the prizes, and not on the act of bettering her performance. Embrace success as holding yourself to a high personal standard and focus on the process of consistently becoming better. As long as you do your best with what you have, the results will show up eventually. Day 343, on turning intentions into actions. I always wrote down my goals. It wasn't sufficient just to tell myself lose 20 pounds and learn better English and read a little bit more. No. That was only a start. Now I had to make it very specific so that all those fine intentions were not just floating around. I would take out index cards and write that I was going to get 12 more units in college, earn enough money to save $5,000, work out 5 hours a day, gain 7 pounds of solid muscle weight, and find an apartment building to buy and move into. Arnold Schwarzenegger. The more vague your plans are, the more likely they are to remain in the realm of intentions instead of real-world actions. You need to make your plans specific, quantifiable, and, ideally, repeatable in some way so that each day brings you closer to accomplishing your goals. I'm going to write a book is a good start, but it isn't going to lead to any accomplishments unless you make it more specific by listing the specific actions that you're going to take, such as, plot my story in 2,000 words, write the first chapter, and later on, as the sole daily action that is required to reach your goal, write 1,000 words every day. With goals that make it difficult to tell whether or when you've accomplished them, such as Arnold's I'm going to learn better English, it's crucial to set specific, quantifiable subgoals, such as master 100 common words related to medicine or read 10 history books in English, so that you can objectively say that because of the effort you've exerted, you've indeed improved your abilities and have evidence that supports that view. Note that the real work doesn't begin until you take the first action designed to get you closer to your goals. Even the most specific and well-designed goal is still a dream until you figure out what concrete actions you need to take and then take them to convert it into a true goal with chances for success. Week 50. Day 344, on the desire for safety. The desire for safety stands against every great and noble enterprise. Tacitus. When setting any new goals, the desire for safety will fight against the desire for growth. Choosing safety is choosing instant gratification, while going for growth might be uncomfortable now, but will eventually deliver bigger and better rewards. Learn how to overcome the desire for safety by regularly expanding your comfort zone and reaping the rewards of doing so. It's hard to imagine how beneficial temporarily giving up safety can be unless you actually do it. No words of mine will persuade you more than you actually venturing out, testing it for yourself, and feeling more powerful, thanks to facing your fears. You can also follow the strategy of alternating between periods of safety and growth. After each big step forward that required courage and put you in an uncomfortable situation, give yourself a few days to enjoy safety. Then, when you feel secure and recharged, expose yourself to danger and growth again. That way, you'll consistently stretch yourself in a sustainable way, without ever completely exhausting your mental energy. That's what I often do during my rock climbing workouts. On some workouts I favor technical routes that require little courage but lots of focus, and then on other workouts, I climb difficult, mental routes where a fear of falling enters into the equation. Thanks to this approach, I rarely don't feel like climbing. Whenever I don't feel mentally ready to give up the feeling of security, I can simply do something else and then expand my comfort zone the next time, when I'll have recovered. Stretch your comfort zone frequently, but do it in a sustainable way. Ensure that you regularly get to enjoy at least a short period of security to gather energy for another expedition that will take you beyond your comfort zone. Day 345, on injecting adventure in your routines. Writing interests me more than anything else. If I made a chore of it, my enthusiasm would die. I make it an adventure every day. I get more entertainment from it than any I could buy. Willa Cather. A daily routine sounds boring, but it doesn't need to be. If you inject some fun and adventure in it, you'll find it will be easier and more pleasant to stick to it. For example, if you're on a diet, there's no rule stating that you can't cook exotic healthy meals or try foods you've never tasted before. Starting a diet can be a good opportunity to introduce more variety in your nutritional habits. If you want to become more financially disciplined, turn it into a game. Set a challenge to save as much money as you can. Find better deals for the items you need to buy regularly. Come up with ways to make some money on the side. If you want to become more productive, challenge yourself to get as much work done as possible in a short period of time. Experiment by working in different places. Try new ways of getting things done. If your resolutions don't feel like chores, but more like opportunities to have some small adventures and entertain yourself, you'll be more likely to stick to them than if you looked at them as boring obligations. Day 346, on surpassing yourself. A man's life is interesting primarily when he has failed, I well know. For it's a sign that he tried to surpass himself. George Clemenceau. One interesting and empowering way to look at failure is to consider it a sign that you're trying to surpass yourself. After all, you can't fail if you're doing something that is well within your abilities. You fail when you're doing something that is difficult for you, in order to grow. Hence, if you aren't failing, you're probably not stretching yourself enough. If you've been going a long time without any failures, it's time to think bigger. Not experiencing any failures is a clear sign that you're setting your aims too low and it's time to seek a more challenging environment or establish new, more difficult goals. Success is obviously a positive thing, but bear in mind that if you're constantly succeeding, it comes with the risk of getting too cocky and assuming that you're invincible. Setting goals with a high risk of failure will help you stay humble and ultimately aid you in keeping success in your life. Day 347, on enduring your tyrants. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact amount of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them, and these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. Frederick Douglass. Likewise, the limits of problems in your life are determined by your tolerance of them. If you have a slight pain in your little toe, you probably aren't going to go see the doctor, but multiply the pain by a factor of 5 and you'll be at the doctor's office in a split second. Think in the same way about your bad habits or any other harmful actions of yours. If the perceived pain, negative consequences, is weak, you'll most likely continue to tolerate it for as long as it doesn't increase. Intensify the pain, and you'll start looking for solutions. There are 2 ways to inspire you to give up negative behaviors. 1. The pain caused by your negative behaviors intensifies by itself. One day you realize that the problem has grown to such proportions that you must do something about it. For example, your negative nutritional habits lead to a heart attack, or failing to improve your self-confidence makes you a loner without any friends. This is not a good way to deal with negative behaviors, because you're letting the problem grow uncontrollably until it poses a big risk in your life. 2. Intensifying the pain by making yourself aware of how deep the pain goes. Instead of ignoring the pain and keeping it running in the background, you tune into it and focus on all of its consequences. Make them bigger and assume they will soon get worse. Use the negative visualization to inspire the change. For example, once you notice you're gasping for air after climbing a set of stairs, assume that it's the first sign of an incoming rapid deterioration of health. New symptoms will soon follow, and each will be stronger than the previous one. The slight discomfort you have now is only the beginning. Amplify its message and act now while you still can. Don't ignore it by thinking that you can forget about it for now and you will address it later if it gets worse. Unless you can convince yourself how far-reaching and dangerous the consequences of your behaviors can be in the long term, you won't act. Think of any negative behaviors of yours as tyrants, To what extreme measures must they go before you stop enduring their oppression? Day 348, on using your strength. Greatness lies not in being strong, but in the using of strength. Henry Ward Beecher. I've never understood the point of going to the gym, lifting weights, and then heading back home, sitting on your butt for the rest of the week and avoiding any kind of physical movement, never actually using your strength for anything besides lifting weights. Doesn't one find the purpose for getting strong by actually using it for something besides training? Throughout the book, I've listed numerous exercises you can use to boost your willpower and become a more self-disciplined person. Those exercises aren't there for entertainment purposes. I'm sharing them with you so you can actually perform them and then apply the lessons and improvements that you gain through them to your goals. There's little point in practicing self-control for the sake of practicing self-control. Of course, nothing prevents you from taking cold showers just because you'd like to test yourself or controlling your thoughts just because you'd like to get better at controlling your thoughts. However, remember that ultimately the intention of those exercises is to build strength, which you then use to make your life better. Day 349, on managing energy. Energy, not time, is the fundamental currency of high performance. Jim Loehr. You can have all the time in the world, but if you don't have energy, it won't mean anything. Your energy is your primary resource needed to change your life for the better. If you lack it, your chances of attaining your goals drop to zero. For this reason, it's vital to learn how to manage your energy. That's why I'm so adamant about the importance of healthy habits like getting enough sleep, eating healthily, and exercising regularly. If you don't have such habits, your energy levels are compromised and you're less likely to achieve your goals. In addition to healthy habits, consider making a list of things, places, and people who energize you and a second list of those that rob you of energy. Now that you have both lists in front of you, think about how you can restructure your life to spend as much time as possible in an energizing environment with energizing people, and as little time as possible in situations that rob your energy. For example, large crowds exhaust me, so you'll almost never find me in one. On the other end of the spectrum, spending time in nature recharges me, so I strive to be outdoors at least a few times a week. Energy management is one of the key skills you need to perform well in both your professional and personal life. Let me assure you that no matter how disciplined you are, if you routinely exhaust yourself, one day you'll burn out. Wouldn't it be better to learn how to manage your energy today, so that you can avoid this unpleasant problem altogether? Day 350, on doing things deliberately. Working slowly in today's world goes against every thought system. You can only work slowly if you do it deliberately. Being deliberate requires you to stay in the process, to work in the present moment. Thomas Sterner. In rock climbing, when you're clipping the rope into a quick draw and you rush it, your movements will be imprecise. In the end, with rapid movements it will take you more time to clip in the rope than if you were to do it slowly. Working deliberately, particularly when the stakes are high, takes a lot of self-control. You need to battle against the temptation to rush things and maintain your concentration when stress threatens to consume you. Doing things fast, but not necessarily well, isn't a particularly good strategy for achievement. In fact, it's usually the slow, deliberate, poised movements that lead to great outcomes, and not rushed, nervous, or impulsive actions. Identify when your behaviors are hasty and unfocused and take advantage of such opportunities to exercise your willpower by doing things slowly and with precision. Week 51. Day 351, on admitting you're struggling. To cut out every negative root would simultaneously mean choking off positive elements that might arise from it further up the stem of the plant. We should not feel embarrassed by our difficulties, only by our failure to grow anything beautiful from them. Alain de Botton. I often talk about my failures in my books because I want my readers to understand that hardships are an inherent part of the process. If somebody claims they're successful but they've never failed, you can be sure they're lying. Whenever you're dealing with problems and struggling to stick to your goals, don't be afraid to share your troubles with others and reach out for help. You might feel tempted to protect your ego and demonstrate that you're infallible, but doing so is counterproductive. Denying that you have problems or denying that you could use help or support doesn't make you better than a person who publicly admits that things aren't going well and is looking for assistance. In the end, there's nothing to be ashamed of when you're struggling. The only shame is in failing to recognize your problems, because that's when you miss out on some of the most valuable opportunities to grow. Day 352, on the empowerment in trade-offs. Essentialists see trade-offs as an inherent part of life, not as an inherently negative part of life. Instead of asking, what do I have to give up? They ask, what do I want to go big on? Greg McKeown. We've discussed that it's essential to replace I can't do it with I don't do it in order not to think of your resolutions as punishments. This entry is about taking that even further. Instead of asking yourself what you have to give up, think of something more important that you want to gain. In other words, frame your perception of giving up a harmful behavior as an act of empowerment, not an act of sacrifice. For example, if you want to start saving money, it's not a question of what you won't be able to buy anymore. The right question is, what will saving more money let you go big on? How about improving your peace of mind, spending less time shopping, treating your family to a nice vacation, or, ultimately, perhaps even retiring early? In the grand scheme of things, what does giving up some purchases mean in comparison to that? Approach each trade-off in the same way. Ensure that you understand deep down that it's an act of choosing to get more of something you consider important, and not an act of sacrificing something to get something else. Day 353, on glancing at your smartphone. If every moment of potential boredom is relieved with a quick glance at your smartphone, then your brain has likely been rewired to a point where it's not ready for deep work, even if you regularly schedule time to practice this concentration. Cal Newport. If you have a tendency to glance at your smartphone every few minutes, or the thought of leaving your smartphone in another room for a few minutes gives you an anxiety attack, it's time to embrace your self-control to defeat this habit. It sounds like a little insignificant thing, but in fact it's a sign of a deeper issue. Your brain has been rewired in such a way that you physically cannot resist the urge to periodically check your phone. Consequently, you can't maintain focus for more than a few minutes, and I don't think I need to explain why this ruins your productivity. Start slowly. Instead of checking your phone every 5 minutes, wait for 10 minutes. Then, when it gets easier, try 20, 30, 40, 1 hour. Again, it's a tiny bad habit, but working on it presents a valuable exercise in growing your willpower. It will also eventually improve your ability to engage in deep work that you'd otherwise keep interrupting by checking your phone every few minutes. Day 354, on focusing on the good things. I think it's almost an indulgence to focus on the dark side of things. And as you get older, you want to focus on the positive. Rob Brydon. On several occasions, we have talked about cultivating positive emotions when things go bad. I argued that focusing on the bad things is an act of mental laziness because they're easier to access than the positive ones. Today I'd like to talk about this topic yet again, this time by looking at it as a new habit to instill. As people get older, they tend to focus more on the dark side of things. Perhaps it's because they've experienced more things, suffered more failures, or were let down by more people. Whatever the reason, if you want to remain a happy and successful person, grumbling is not the way to go. If by default you focus on the dark side, it's time to develop a new habit. Whenever you catch yourself focusing on the dark side of things, come up with one good thing about the situation and focus on that thought instead. Keep your mouth shut if you want to voice a complaint. For example, if you're out enjoying a walk with a friend and it's starting to rain, resist the temptation to complain about the bad weather. Instead, say, for example, that it's nice to take a walk despite the rain because there are fewer people around, or redirect your attention to something else, such as your friend's recent success. Exhibiting a positive attitude takes work, but it's work that is well worth the effort. Strive to focus on the positive and train yourself to always find something good, even in the worst circumstances. You'll get better at controlling your thoughts and become more optimistic and resilient. Day 355, on luxuries. The taste for luxuries increases with marvelous rapidity under indulgence. George Payne Rainsford James. The more luxuries you consume and surround yourself with, the more you'll become accustomed to them and the harder it will be for you to tolerate something less than perfect. While there's nothing wrong in enjoying the fruits of your labor and making your life a little bit more convenient, be cautious to not overindulge in luxuries. They can spoil you and make you less resilient and capable of dealing with difficult situations. Not being able to accept something less than perfect is ultimately a big weakness. A disciplined person will be able to train in every gym or even without any equipment, eat healthily even if there are no Whole Foods markets available where they are, and stay productive even without a proper work desk. Periodically go with something of a lower quality to remind yourself that things don't have to be world-class in order to still serve their function. Forgo some conveniences to improve your tolerance of the hardships. Don't indulge yourself after a success, in order to remind yourself that ultimately the most valuable reward is the process you had to go through to achieve the final outcome. Doing all of those things will increase your appreciation of what you have, and remind you that discomfort is always just a step away, and yes, there's always the risk that one day it will be you who will have to tolerate it again. Day 356, on taking the initiative. I've trained myself to propose solutions instead of ask for them, to elicit responses instead of react, and to be assertive without burning bridges. To have an uncommon lifestyle, you need to develop the uncommon habit of making decisions, both for yourself and for others. Tim Ferriss. You need a lot of self-discipline to take the initiative instead of taking the easy way out and waiting for somebody else to act. It's easier to present a problem and ask for solutions than to suggest some yourself. It's easier to delegate the responsibility for the decision to someone else, essentially freeing yourself of the discomfort of having to make a decision in exchange for losing control over the situation. To obtain better results in all kinds of endeavors, become the person who takes the initiative. If you're dealing with a problem that affects others, instead of only presenting the problem to the group, propose several solutions. Resist the temptation to be lazy by relying on others' ideas and come up with your own. I used to work with a few business partners, and I can tell you that there's nothing better than an associate who doesn't merely wait for the solutions, but offers them himself or herself. And the reverse is also true. There's nothing worse than a collaborator who only brings you problems and expects you to solve them all. In addition, become proactive and react as quickly as you can. Yes, it's uncomfortable to stand out and take the initiative while everybody else is looking at you and judging you. However, ultimately, he or she who acts first is the leader. Immediately reacting to situations also trains you to overcome hesitation and to develop a habit of taking action. For example, if you're walking down the street and somebody looks like they're about to faint, overcome your social fears and ask them if they're fine. Such a small decision of yours might mean the difference between life and death for that stranger. I was once on a bike ride with a friend when we noticed a man lying down in the middle of the sidewalk, blood dripping out of his ear. Nobody stopped to help him, and yet he was a stone's throw away from a church packed with people. Who knows? Maybe nobody offered to help because they were afraid to take action or thought that somebody else would take the initiative. Fortunately, we attended to the man and the ambulance arrived quickly to take him to the hospital. What if nobody had stopped to help him for several hours? Taking the initiative is often uncomfortable, but that's just one more reason to do it. Don't react, act. Don't present problems, present solutions. Don't shrug it off by saying whatever, choose an option if nobody else is willing to do it. Day 357, on the rare indulgence. Rare indulgence produces greater pleasure. Juvenal. Here's a simple trick to postpone acting on a temporary urge. Tell yourself that you'll engage in it later, and your reward for postponing it will be the greater pleasure it will give you. I know, it sounds like an overly simplistic tip, but try it out. I regularly tell myself that I'll reward myself with something that I crave right now, but only after I finish my work or any other important, or uncomfortable, task that I have to perform. That way, I stop obsessing about getting the reward right now and I actually want to get it later, because I know that it will taste so much better than giving into it now. Week 52. Day 358, on acting differently from others. Unless you think that the majority of people are living successful lives, chances are that at some point you will have to act differently from those around you. Success can take many forms, and it is often about standing out from the crowd or being above average, spotting when the crowd moves one way and making sure that you move the other. Nigel Cumberland. It takes guts to stand out from the crowd and move the other way when, deep down, you know that it's you who's right and not everyone else. Even if you're a self-disciplined, mentally tough person, it's still hard to go against the crowd. For this reason, one of the most powerful exercises you can do to improve your chances of acting differently from others when you know that you're right is to practice holding your ground. If somebody tells you to do something in a given way but you don't understand why, ask them to explain their request. If the explanation isn't sufficient, suggest a different way of doing things that you think might be better. Note that this isn't about confrontation for the sake of confrontation. It's an exercise in questioning doing things in a given way just because that's how they've been done until now, but nobody knows why. This way, you get to learn, on a small scale, how it feels when you're opposing the current, and this experience will help you hold your ground when the stakes are higher. Day 359, on treats versus rewards. A treat is different from a reward, which must be justified or earned. A treat is a small pleasure or indulgence that we give to ourselves just because we want it. Treats give us greater vitality, which boosts self-control, which helps us maintain our healthy habits. When we give ourselves treats, we feel energized, cared for, and contented, which in turn boosts self-command. When we don't get any treats, we feel depleted, resentful, and angry, and we feel justified in self-indulgence. We start to crave comfort and grab that comfort wherever we can, even if it means breaking good habits. Gretchen Rubin. Trying to totally do without treats and rewards is a posture that is destined to fail. I don't know of a single person, no matter how self-disciplined, who doesn't treat themselves to a small pleasure or indulgence every now and then and who doesn't use rewards as a motivational tool. Treats and rewards serve an important role. They help you to recover and to face future discomforts with a more positive outlook. Don't make the mistake of assuming that you're so disciplined that you don't need rewards or treats in order to work on your goals. There's only one outcome from making such a dangerous assumption. After a period of doing well, you'll start craving comfort. Since you'll deny yourself the needed comfort, the desire to indulge will build up, eventually explode, and destroy any remnants of self-discipline that remained. Set rewards for accomplishments and don't be afraid to indulge in small pleasures from time to time as long as they're small and don't compromise your long-term goals. Self-care reinforces self-command, while self-denial depletes it. Day 360, on self-myofascial release. Self-myofascial release is a fancy term for self-massage to release muscle tightness or trigger points. This method can be performed with a foam roller, lacrosse ball, Theracane, or your own hands. By applying pressure to specific points on your body, you are able to aid in the recovery of muscles and assist in returning them to normal function. Normal function means your muscles are elastic, healthy, and ready to perform at a moment's notice. Jeff Culland. As the quote explains, self-myofascial release is a term for self-massage. You focus on trigger points in your body to release tension and bring back the previous elasticity of your muscles. What does it have to do with self-discipline? Here are 3 ways that it applies. First, it's difficult to be on top of your game if your body is constantly tense. I find it hard to focus on work if I suffer from back pain. When I spend a few minutes massaging the tightest spots, the mental tension goes away along with the physical tension. Second, one common reason why people skip workouts or avoid putting themselves in uncomfortable situations is because they're in pain. A lot of that pain comes from your body being tight like a bowstring. Several weeks spent addressing your most painful trigger points can work miracles when it comes to eliminating chronic pain. Finally, self-myofascial release, such as using a foam roller, isn't a particularly comfortable thing to do. In fact, it can be immensely painful. And that's precisely why self-massage can be a valuable exercise for your self-discipline. Just like in any other exercise, you suffer some temporary pain or discomfort but eventually get a bigger reward. With self-massage, you experience the temporary pain of applying pressure to your trigger points, but then benefit from increased mobility and free yourself from the chronic pain of tight muscles. Buying an inexpensive lacrosse ball or a foam roller can be one of your best investments. Greatly reduced, or even eliminated, pain, increased mobility, and improved self-discipline are more than worth the $20 or $30 spent on a self-massage tool. Day 361, on smiling. If in our daily life we can smile, if we can be peaceful and happy, not only we, but everyone will profit from it. If we really know how to live, what better way to start the day than with a smile? Our smile affirms our awareness and determination to live in peace and joy. The source of a true smile is an awakened mind. Thich Nhat Hanh. Smiling is one of the easiest, and one of the hardest things to do. It's natural to smile when you're happy and feel good, and almost impossible when you're in pain or feeling unwell. With increased self-control, your ability to do things in spite of what you feel like doing increases. Smiling can be an excellent exercise in this practice. I don't want to downplay the negative things that may be happening in your or anyone else's life. However, the truth is that we often resort to scowling, crying, worrying, and radiating negativity when we experience negative emotions, just because this state is easier to access than the positive one. When you think about it logically, it makes no sense to further ruin your mood after experiencing something negative. If you have a cold, you don't go out naked in the middle of the winter to catch pneumonia, too. Yet, that's pretty much what we're doing anytime we decide to humor negative emotions instead of smiling despite them, or at least trying to lift our spirits a little. Obviously, it's easy to say that. Some negative events are such that they can destroy a person from the inside out, and telling them to smile would be ridiculous. Apply this advice primarily to the small everyday struggles you encounter, where your negative reaction isn't necessary. For the next week, try to handle every difficulty with a smile on your face. It doesn't matter if your smile isn't entirely genuine. The point is to make an effort in overcoming your default reaction of feeling negative and replace it with a more positive attitude. Even if you fail to maintain a better mood for more than a couple of minutes, the exercise in itself will help you better control your impulses and might even lift your spirits slightly. And if you repeat it often enough, your brain's pathways will change and make you more capable of feeling positive, even when bad things happen, and that's not a bad ability to have, is it? Day 362, on professionalism. Amateurs think that if they were inspired all the time, they could be professionals. Professionals know that if they relied on inspiration, they'd be amateurs. Philip Pullman. Inspiration is important to get you to start working on your goals, but you can't rely on it alone if you want to pursue excellence and become a high performer. The keys to professionalism are: 1. Routine. Don't wait for inspiration to strike you. In an ideal world, you'd be inspired all the time, always pumped up to work. In the real world, you're probably going to be uninspired more often than you'll be inspired. Yet, if you want to become professional, you need to deliver on both good and bad days. Establish a routine of what you need to produce each day, whether it's 1,000 words of a book, playing the guitar for an hour, making 50 sales calls, or learning 20 new words in a foreign language, and stick to it, regardless of your mood. 2. Reliability. If you give a promise, you fulfill it, and that includes any promise you make to yourself. This also means sticking to deadlines and resisting the temptation to extend them just because they're difficult to meet. 3. Constant improvement. Amateurs dabble, while professionals constantly improve their craft. Always seek new ways to improve your performance and avoid the laziness of rejecting new, possibly better methods, just because they can disrupt your current way of doing things. Day 363, on relying upon yourself. It always makes more sense to concentrate on the direct alternatives, the things you do control. What others do is up to them, but there's always a great deal you can do. Choose from the alternatives that require only your decision, not from among the many hopes that someone will be something other than what he is. To rely on your rights or on your ability to change others is far less promising than to rely upon yourself. Harry Brown. One dangerous pitfall to be aware of when setting goals is to avoid tying them to the performance or willingness of other people. For example, I believe that the best business partner is yourself and nobody else. If you have a goal to build a successful business so you can eventually dedicate yourself to your children and your business partner doesn't have such a strong motivation, it will be a source of conflict forever. You'll need his or her approval for any business decision, and 50% of the success of your business will depend on the other person. Losing full control over the decision-making process means lowering your chances of success. In exercise, you might feel tempted to wait before you buy a gym pass until you persuade your friend to start exercising with you. Yes, working out with a partner is more effective, but if you're relying on this person to establish a positive change in your life, you've already failed. And what if your friend drops out? Will you drop out, too? Don't wait for another person to change your life. You can hope that their desires will be in line with yours, but it's a better strategy to rely on yourself by choosing alternatives that require your decision alone. Day 364, on Books, Part 2. Books are the treasured wealth of the world and the fit inheritance of generations and nations. Books, the oldest and the best, stand naturally and rightfully on the shelves of every cottage. They have no cause of their own to plead, but while they enlighten and sustain the reader, his common sense will not refuse them. Their authors are a natural and irresistible aristocracy in every society, and, more than kings or emperors, exert an influence on mankind. Henry David Thoreau. On day 79 I shared with you 3 inspirational books, and then, on day 158, I suggested some biographies to read. Today, now that we're at the end of this book, I'd like to give you some additional recommendations that you might find it valuable to read after you finish 365 days with self-discipline. Here they are. 1. Make It Big. 49 Secrets for Building a Life of Extreme Success, by Frank McKinney. Brilliantly inspiring and practical book written by a fascinating entrepreneur and philanthropist. 2 and 3. Unlimited Power and Awaken the Giant Within, by Tony Robbins. 2 self-help classics that everyone should read. 4. Essentialism, by Greg McKeown. If you're struggling to identify your priorities and focus on what matters most, this book will help you. 5. The Obstacle is the Way, by Ryan Holiday. An excellent book, loosely based on the Roman philosophy of Stoicism, that teaches you how to succeed in spite of hardships. 6. How Not to Die, by Michael Greger. If you want to learn more about the why and how of healthy eating habits, this book is for you. Understanding on a deeper level how your unhealthy choices can affect your life can boost your resolve to finally make a change. Week 53. Day 365, on Sweeping the Floor. My friend the philosopher and martial artist Daniele Bolelli once gave me a helpful metaphor. He explained that training was like sweeping the floor. Just because we've done it once, doesn't mean the floor is clean forever. Every day the dust comes back. Every day we must sweep. Ryan Holiday. As we're about to part ways, I'd like to leave you with an important reminder: cultivating self-discipline, like training or sweeping the floor, is something that must be done daily. As incredible as it would be to build self-discipline just once and then enjoy it for the rest of your life, it requires constant work to maintain it so that it can aid you in your objectives. The moment you put instant gratification back on the pedestal is the moment you start losing your self-control. The moment you decide that it's time to embrace the easy life and stay away from the challenges is the moment your life starts getting harder. The moment you decide that you're already strong enough and nothing can break your spirit is the moment you start losing mental resilience. We've spent 365 days together, but your journey towards self-discipline doesn't end here. Grab the broomstick and start sweeping. Epilogue. Our journey has come to an end, and I don't want to keep you here for long. I hope that you've gathered so many different ideas to apply in your life that you'll be busy implementing them for a long time to come. As a quick final reminder, please remember that accumulating knowledge without applying it in real life is like reading cookbooks without ever actually following any of the recipes. What's the point? Put on your chef's uniform and get cooking. You have 365 different recipes to try. Finally, please note that I wrote this book to give you inspiration and offer various tips that apply to different aspects of self-discipline. I prioritized brief, universal suggestions over detailed how-to advice. If you want to get more specific, in-depth lessons about self-discipline, please refer to my other books about self-discipline, which address areas like dieting, self-discipline, exercise, how to build self-discipline to exercise, entrepreneurship, self-discipline for entrepreneurs, impulse control, how to build self-discipline, and long-term habits, daily self-discipline.